on this night, this very nice springtime night. Isn't it a great night to talk about lucid dreaming? Oh, it's been too long since I had Robert Wagner on the program, and that's what we're going to do tonight. But we're going to take a different angle at this tonight. We're not just going to talk about the phenomenon of lucid dreams or how to lucid dream, but how to use lucid dreams to improve your life or make some changes or just use this talent that we all have, right? So I'm going to find that pretty interesting, and I'm looking forward to talking with Robert Wagner. Coming up here soon after the bottom of the hour break. We'll be right back. Well, 40 years ago, author Robert Wagner taught himself a simple trick to lucid dream or become consciously aware of dreaming while in the dream state. Now, logging more than 1,000 lucid dreams since that time, he's used this scientifically validated state to explore lucid dreaming's potential for accessing subconscious creativity, healing the body, and communicating with an aware and responsive inner self. After the success of his acclaimed book, Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self, Robert Wagner has written a second book with co-author Carolyn McCready, Lucid Dreaming Plain and Simple, to help beginners induce lucid dreams, stabilize them, and learn how to use them for growth, healing, and personal transformation. And what a treat it is to welcome Robert Wagner to the program. Thank you for joining me tonight, Robert. It's been way too long.
Oh, thanks, Heather. It's great to be here.
So, I got a wormhole message here already from a listener out there by the name of Smog, who says, you know what, I'm a newbie to all things paranormal. Could you have Robert go through how to lucid dream? I have no clue how to do it. Could we do that?
Sure. So first we have to understand what a lucid dream is. So a lucid dream is whenever you realize within a dream that you're dreaming. There's something that happens in the dream that makes you stop and think, wait a second, this has to be a dream. So you might see something impossible, like a house flying by. You might see your grandmother and think, wait a second, grandma's been dead for 10 years. Oh, this must be a dream. So that's when you become lucidly aware, when you realize that something impossible is happening and the only explanation is that it's a lucid dream. So I'll tell you how I taught myself how to lucid dream back in 1975. I was reading this book by Carlos Castaneda called Journey to Ixtlan. And in this book, his shamanic teacher, Don Juan, had told him that he should try to find his hands in the dream state and become lucidly aware. And there really wasn't a technique in the book, so I just created my own technique. Each night before I'd go to sleep, I'd look at the palms of my hands while repeating softly in my head, tonight in my dreams I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. Tonight in my dreams I'll see my hands and realize I'm dreaming. And so I'd do this for about 4 or 5 minutes until I got too sleepy, and then I'd go to sleep. And so on the third night of doing this, I'm walking through my high school hallway, and all of a sudden, just like they're spring-loaded, my hands pop right in front of my face, and I realize, wait a second, my hands, this is a dream. And Heather, it was a total mind trip to realize that everything around me was dream stuff, and that I was aware of it, and then I could decide what I wanted to do. So I went on to have an incredible lucid dream. So that's just one technique on how to get into this whole realm of lucid dreaming. But I'll tell you, for many people, it's one of the most incredible things that'll ever occur to them in their life is when they become lucidly aware.
Right, because I'm sure this will come up later on in the show, but it's a little bit different from an out-of-body experience or astral travel. We all have access to the dream world. And this is something that anybody can do. It doesn't cost us a penny. And yet there's an entire world, an entire other world that we can manipulate and we can craft. Can you really do that in lucid dreaming? Can you create whatever kind of dream you want to be having?
You know, you can, but it's kind of like just because you can jump into the swimming pool doesn't mean that you know how to swim. It takes a little bit of time to figure out how to influence things in a lucid dream. It takes a little bit of knowledge on what the rules are in the lucid dream state. And so that's why people like myself write books on lucid dreaming, so we can kind of give people a heads up, so when they jump into the pool of lucid dreaming, they know what to do and they just don't flounder about. But if you know how, you can do extraordinary things in a lucid dream. You can access creativity. You can heal the emotional issues that you might have. Some people have used it for physical healing of physical ailments. Some people have used it to explore the unconscious mind and what it contains. And other people have used it for deep spiritual practices. So you can use it for all these different things. But again, you've got to know how to become lucid, how to stabilize it, and then how to work within that special state.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll talk about all these things as the night progresses on. But what I find fascinating about lucid dreaming is this is scientifically proven. How was that done?
This is a great story of scientific ingenuity. For more than 1,000 years, people had been talking about lucid dreaming, about becoming consciously aware in the dream state and realizing that you're dreaming. But scientifically validating this was tough. I mean, how do you validate something that's happening in a dream? And so back in 1975, there was a researcher at the University of Hull in England by the name of Keith Hearn, and he met a gentleman, Alan Worsley, who said he was a good lucid dreamer. But Hearn began to think, well, how could you prove that he was actually lucidly aware? And that's when Hearn realized that in the dream state, we normally have rapid eye movement. So our eyes are moving around as we kind of watch things in the dream. Mm-hmm. And then Hearn realized, well, if you brought a lucid dreamer into the sleep lab and you put those pads on his eyes that would record his eye movements, if the person could become lucidly aware and then move his eyes left to right 8 times, if they could do that in a lucid dream, then that would get recorded on the polygraph pad readout, and it would prove that lucid dreaming occurs. And so in April of 1975, Alan Worsley, the same year that I first began to lucid dream consciously, this gentleman, Alan Worsley, did this in a sleep lab in England. And about 2 years later at Stanford, Stephen LaBerge came up with the same idea. He apparently hadn't heard of what work Hearn was doing, and Stephen LaBerge, who was a lucid dreamer himself, brought himself into the sleep lab and did this and came out with the scientific paper on it. So that's how they proved it. They call this the eye signal verification technique. You become lucidly aware, you move your eyes left to right, and that alerts the researchers that you're consciously aware within the dream. And sometimes you'll even move your eyes again to show that you're going to begin an experiment or something like that. But that's how they scientifically validated it.
Kind of just like a signal to give, while you're in the dream world, you can give the waking world a signal by counting 8 times, moving your eyes back and forth 8 times.
Yes, it's a wonderful story because, again, people have been talking about this for thousands of years. Various religious traditions or spiritual traditions like Buddhism and Sufism and Taoism had used lucid dreaming along with a lot of shamanic workers too. But proving it was a whole different thing, and this really shocked the dream community and the scientific community too. At first they didn't want to believe it, but because they could replicate it over and over and over, they eventually just had to accept that lucid dreaming was a valid phenomenon.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to ask that right at the beginning here because a lot of people ask me, well, you talk a lot about the paranormal and where's the proof? Where is the proof? So we want to get that right out of the way. But, something else that we talk about on the program a lot is astral travel, out-of-body experiences. So how is lucid dreaming different from that, or is it the same?
Yeah, they're somewhat similar, but they're similar in the same way that a house cat and a mountain lion are similar. At one level, they're quite similar, but you don't want to have a mountain lion living in your house with you. So a lucid dream, again, is when you realize within a dream that you're dreaming. So you see something strange, you realize, oh, this is a dream. But normally when you hear people talk about out-of-body experiences, and I myself have had a number of out-of-body experiences, normally it's something different happens. You're falling asleep, and all of a sudden you begin to hear some humming or energy around your head or your body. It might sound like a didgeridoo or something. Is that kind of intense vibrational humming? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you might realize that you're seeing the bedroom from 10 feet above your bed. And you think, wait a second, how'd I get up here? So in an out-of-body experience, there's no realizing within a dream that you're dreaming. Normally, instead, it's an experience of separating from the physical body. Or you might roll out of your body or shoot out of your body. Mm-hmm. And so it's a much different experience there. Also, in a lucid dream, normally you have to manipulate your mind in order to do things in the lucid dream. So if I want to fly from one place to another, I really have to concentrate and focus and use my mind to do that. But in the out-of-body experience, if you want to get someplace, basically all you have to do is just see it or think about it, and boom, you're right there. And so an out-of-body has different characteristics as you move around and explore. And also you'll have people have out-of-bodies when they have medical conditions, like they have a heart attack, and then they report that they're in the operating room and they're seeing everything occurring on the lifeless body beneath them. Mm-hmm. So again, in that kind of experience, a medical condition, there's no becoming aware within a dream that you're dreaming. It's a whole different thing. Mm. And so they are quite similar because it is a dissociated condition. You're aware in this altered state, and you can fly around and do many of the same similar things, but it is different in how they functionally work and how people approach them. Hmm.
Interesting. Well, that should make it then pretty clear for a person to figure out what kind of experience they're having. But, this has come up with a few guests here lately. Is any of this dangerous, Robert? Is there any danger in trying to lucid dream or explore the dream world in that way? And is there any danger in astral travel or out-of-body travel, for that matter?
When it comes to lucid dreaming, I really... There's hundreds of thousands of people who are lucid dreaming, and they've done surveys of college students, and basically they find here in the States that 70% of college-age students report having a lucid dream at least once in their life, and about 25% say they have lucid dreams regularly, about once a month. And so there's just an enormous millions of people who are having lucid dreams, and rarely do you ever hear anything negative. Occasionally you might hear of a scary lucid dream or one where they didn't know how to manipulate things and all. So I really can't think of lucid dreaming as being dangerous. What I tell people is I don't think it's any more dangerous than watching TV. And I say that knowing that occasionally every year in America, a TV will fall on somebody as they're watching it. But for the vast majority of us, we can watch TV and live through the experience. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to out-of-body experiences or something like that, they're a little bit more energetically different feeling, because oftentimes you'll have this humming and vibration and you roll out of your body and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But is it really dangerous? I don't really see evidence for that. What I do see, though, is that sometimes people meet in either lucid dreams or out-of-body states. They meet projections of their own fears. And sometimes, it'll be an angry animal. Sometimes it'll be, whatever, a guy with 3 arms and a hatchet, whatever it is. But oftentimes these are kind of projected fears that are mentally projected out there. And the reason I say that is in a lucid dream, if you have an aggressive dream figure come at you, if you can just send that aggressive dream figure love, compassion, understanding, all of a sudden you'll normally watch it shrink down to nothing or become smaller like a little child. And so then you realize, wow, when my mind changes, the dream figure change, that shows that it's a projection of my mind. And that's how it is also, I think, oftentimes with out-of-body experiences. If you can send love and compassion and peace to whatever scary figure is out there, oftentimes you'll see them change too. And you realize that it's projected energy that you're dealing with. Mm-hmm. So normally I don't see these as dangerous things, but it does help to have some understanding about them, because you can kind of scare yourself silly, but it's not anything to really be worried about. But if you don't understand it, you can really get afraid.
Oh, sure. I have nightmares all the time. I have a lot of nightmares. And sometimes they're entertaining, and other times, no, I'll wake up in the middle of the night. What was that? I was being chased by 99 Grays down the middle of the street. Oh, that was weird. So what about in the height of fear, in the moment of fear where you're not realizing you're in a dream and it's something that really strikes a nerve with you, say for me being chased by aliens, or I had a caller one time who, and if that caller's listening right now, they're going to get a big kick out of this one, because he called one time and said, I was abducted, and when I was on the ship, I saw a bunch of people, and they had plaques in front of where these people were stationed on the ship. And I saw one plaque, and it had your name on it, and I looked up, and there you were. Ever since I got that call, I've had that nightmare that I have kept like an animal in a zoo, and they're just observing me. And I'm begging for coffee and all this stuff, and I'm begging for a cigarette and all these weird things, and just please get me off this ship and all that. So in that moment, in that height of fear, is there the way you programmed yourself to show yourself your hands to indicate that this is a lucid dream? Is there something we can program ahead of time before we go to sleep that you could use to get you out of a nightmare?
Right. So, oftentimes nightmares occur because of unresolved issues in our life. I remember one time I was giving a talk in Colorado, and a young guy raised his hand, and he said, well, what if you never remember your dreams? And I asked him, when was the last time he remembered a dream? And he said, it was 10 years ago when I was 16 years old. And then I asked him, well, what happened to you when you were 16? And he said that, when he was 16, his parents had a horrible divorce. And so I told him that there was a good chance that he might have decided to no longer remember his dreams because he was having nightmares at the time of his parents' horrible divorce. So sometimes on a subconscious level, we'll shut down and stop our dream recall, even though every night most of us have about 5 to 6 dreams. So I told him all he had to do was tell himself before he went to sleep, tonight I allow myself to experience dreaming again and to remember the dreams. And the next morning I saw him, and he was dancing around when he saw me. He said that he announced that to his inner awareness, and all night he said it was like a slideshow, just one image after another of like 10 years of forgotten dreams just went through his mind, and he was just so happy that dreaming had occurred. And so I think that's much the same way when it comes to kind of having a fear of nightmares and all. If before we go to sleep, we tell ourselves something like, tonight in my dreams, I'll resolve the feelings that I have that are causing these nightmares, and in such a way that no one is harmed and for everyone's best good. If we just make some sort of incubation statement like that, tonight my dreams, I'll resolve my feelings around this nightmare in such a way that no one is harmed and for everyone's best good. Oftentimes you'll realize that you can use dreaming to resolve feelings that oftentimes show up as nightmares, and you can use this kind of incubation statement as a way to work around it. Because all of us need some sleep, and it's no fun if we have nightmares. But even then, people use lucid dreaming to get rid of recurring nightmares. And so that's something else we can talk about as the show progresses.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to. And, you know, I got to admit, sometimes having a dream about being chased by grays is entertaining and fun. But sometimes, no, I want to get past it. I want to solve life problems in my dreams. Running the program, you know, I have to make a lot of decisions every single day. And sometimes I want to use my dreams to solve the pressing questions I have during the day, right? If I can't come up with an answer or I just can't decide, what do we always say? Well, I'll sleep on it and then I'll have the answer the next day, right? So I guess that's what I'm really getting at. I want to get the nightmares kind of out of the way so that I can have productive, constructive dreams, and then maybe even go further than that and get into harnessing and what's the word I'm looking for? Cultivating creativity in my dreams.
Right, exactly. And that's one of the beautiful things. They've done some studies that show that in the dream state, oftentimes we're our most creative. Like they did a study where they presented math students with a math problem that had a creative solution. And so half of the group, they told them to come back in 8 hours and solve the problem. And the other half, they let them fall asleep, and they would figure it out, do the problem when they woke up. Well, the group that was able to sleep for 8 hours, I think something like 60% of that group solved the problem that had a creative solution. But the group that stayed awake for 8 hours and then tried to solve it, only 20% of that group could solve it. So it seems like dreaming and sleeping naturally allows greater creativity to occur. And the beautiful thing is there's a lot of inventions that have occurred in the dream state. Even one of the co-founders of Google said that he came up with the idea for Google in a dream that he had at the University of Michigan when he was working on his PhD in computer science. And so there's a lot of creativity that occurs in dreams. But again, we have to recall our dreams. And if we get into lucid dreaming, then we can really use that more consciously and direct it towards creativity.
Well, I have a Navajo medicine man as a friend, and I asked him one time, actually the last time I saw him, because he is so incredible at what he does. So I asked him, how did you learn? Were you taught by an elder? Or who taught you? Is there a book, a Navajo medicine man book? I mean, don't laugh at me. I really want to know. And he said, oh, no, it's fine. It's a good question. I asked my dreams. He said he knew as a child that he wanted to be a medicine man. And he just started asking every time he went to sleep. He'd say, tell me how. And that's how he learned everything that he knows. Nothing came from a book. Nothing came from any elders or anything like that. It all came from his dreams, and the guy is just incredible. Even to be in his presence, you can sense there's just a little something extra about this man. So look, we've got a lot of potential just waiting for us in the dream world and in our dreams. So we'll take us a break right now, and when we come back, we'll get all the way into it with what we can do, practical uses for lucid dreaming, and really how to harness this, Robert. And I will resist the urge to call you doctor. I don't know why I want to call you doctor. Doctor of Dreams, I guess. So we'll be right back with Robert Wagner. I'm Heather Wade. Oh, I'm already having a fun time tonight with this. This is one of my favorite topics ever. I want to head to the wormhole. I got a question from Zarly in the wormhole. Kind of a cool name, Zarly. Says, can you tell me what that soothing, sort of magical-sounding music was just before the break? Thanks. Zarly? Yeah, I can tell you exactly what that is. That was a song called The Mystic's Dream by Lorena McKennitt. And if you've never heard any Lorena McKennitt, boy, she would go great with lucid dreaming. Put a little Lorena McKennitt on, get comfortable, lay back in bed, and I bet you will have good success with your lucid dreaming. Anyhow, welcome back to the program, Robert. We've talked about so far you can use lucid dreaming for resolving emotional issues, becoming more creative, and even physical healing. What are the other practical uses for lucid dreaming?
Right. So this issue of accessing creativity and enhancing life skills is something that people don't quite understand about lucid dreaming. For example, in Germany, they did a survey recently where 8% of the professional athletes were using lucid dreaming to enhance their athletic skills. So you can imagine that if you were like a downhill skier, in a lucid dream, when you know it's a dream, you could do some things that might be a little bit too dangerous to do in the waking state until you learned how to do them. And so in their lucid dreams, they'd do these dangerous maneuvers in their downhill skiing. And then later on in the waking state, they realized that they had enhanced their skill level and that their times were getting better. And so it's interesting to think of professional athletes learning to use lucid dreaming to enhance their skills. But also you'll see it in just some simple things. The other day I was on Facebook, and a woman talked about how in a lucid dream she wondered about French braiding of her hair. And
something every girl has tried to figure out.
Apparently, and she said that normally it was an impossible thing for her to do or to figure out, but suddenly in the lucid dream she could figure it out and knew exactly how to do it. And then she said when she woke up, all of a sudden she could French braid her hair like a wizard. It was just like something inside had occurred, and now she knew the trick to it or the magic to it.
Wow.
And so I'll also hear, from various people, like one time I heard from an author who told me that whenever he gets stuck writing a fictional novel, he'll try to have a lucid dream. And when he becomes lucidly aware, then he'll call for his novel characters to come, and all of a sudden he says the novel characters will appear, and he'll ask them, what's wrong with our novel, or how do we make this novel work? And all of a sudden, these novel characters will give him ideas and solutions on how to make the novel a better novel.
Oh, that is great.
Can you imagine, and you could see how when you're consciously aware at that level of the subconscious mind, you have access to all this information and all these ideas, but you've got to be lucidly aware if you're ever going to get to that. Mm-hmm. And I've also heard from musicians who become lucidly aware, and they'll ask to hear rock lyrics that they could write or music that they could perform, and suddenly they'll hear it and wake up with it. So there's a lot of ways that you can use lucid dreaming on a very practical level and really make progress in your life.
You know what, that reminds me, again, here comes something that I haven't thought about in years, but you're right. I had a musician friend, and I'm not a name dropper, so I won't say who it is, but he was a singer, is still a singer, and he just thought, that his songwriting just wasn't good enough lately, and he wanted to write another hit, another real big hit, because they had one, and he wanted to do it again and again. I mean, he wanted to be the most famous rock band ever. I mean, they weren't, but they were still pretty good. But so he went to sleep one night telling himself, okay, I want to get divine lyrics. Send me the most beautiful song. And that's what he just kept thinking about over and over again as he went to sleep. And he woke up and did not remember his dream at all. But he woke up and he carried on about his day. And then at just one moment in the afternoon, it hit him. And he had to grab a piece of paper really quick and get something to write on really, really quick. At the moment, it was just a piece of cardboard. That was the quickest thing that was near him. So he grabs this cardboard, rips it off a box, one of the flaps on a cardboard box, and he just starts writing these words down. And he ended up writing one of the most beautiful songs. It was incredible. And the lyrics just came, it wasn't even that he realized it was a lucid dream. He just asked that. So is it that simple where we just ask for what we want and then we get it in the dream? Is it that easy?
That's what I call lucid light. You don't even have to become consciously aware that, this is a dream. But what you have to do is have a very clear and pure intent before you go to sleep and request what you're in search of, whether it's the greatest song ever, whatever it is. And if you just flood your mind with that intent, oftentimes in the night, you'll have an amazing dream experience that'll provide you the information or the answer, or you'll wake up the next day and then it'll just spontaneously come to you. I remember reading a book in which Paul McCartney mentioned that the music to the song Yesterday came to him in a dream. And he jumped out of bed. He was staying at his mom's house, and they were filming the Beatles musical film Help. And he jumped out of bed. He ran to the piano, and he started playing the music he had heard in his dream. And it was the music from Yesterday. And he would ask his friends, he'd play a little bit of the music, and he'd say, whose song is this? And nobody had heard of it before. They told him it was his song. And so then suddenly he came up with some lyrics to it and made one of the all-time hits. But again, if people saw the value of dreaming, just like your Navajo friend, he uses dreams to access ancestral knowledge. He uses dreams to get ideas that he would not consciously have any way of getting. And if people really valued dreams, they would see how oftentimes they can give us enormous gifts, but we just need to know how to use it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's right. And if spiritual gifts aren't enough to motivate someone, I say just remember a little story about how Google was started, and there's some value for you. And a lot of people do have like health issues lately, and can we really use lucid dreaming to even heal the physical body? That actually fascinates me. How can that happen, Robert? How can something that just happens in the mind affect an illness in the body?
It's one of these amazing things that a number of lucid dreamers have explored. So what they would have is some sort of physical ailment, like my friend Ed Kellogg, who has a PhD in biochemistry from Duke. He's a very sharp person and a wonderful lucid dreamer. But he told me that it was back in 1984 he had gotten an infection because he was eating a shish kebab so enthusiastically he pricked his inside his mouth and got an infection.
Oh no!
And so he said it, day after day it just kept getting worse. There were red lines going down the side of his face. It was really painful, but he just hated to go to a doctor, and so he decided that he'd try to have a lucid dream and take care of this. And so he became lucidly aware, and he remembered that he had this problem, and so he focused healing intent on the infection, and he said that when he woke up, it was like the amount of pain had rapidly decreased, and within a few hours, the red lines disappeared, the swelling went down, and all the pain had basically vanished. And so that was his first experience with using lucid dreams to resolve a physical ailment. And there's a Buddhist saying that an action performed at the level of a lucid dream is 7 times more powerful than one performed at the waking level. And I think what they're trying to get across is that when you're in this deep state of consciousness, in the dream state, and you're consciously aware, if you focus your healing intent, it can make profound results. It can just, make things go away or disappear much more rapidly than you'd ever imagine. But in my books, I give about a dozen examples of people who have used lucid dreaming to heal themselves. There's a wonderful one of a friend of Ed Kellogg's, a woman who had these painful plantar warts on her feet, and they were so painful she just hated to even walk. She had been trying to visualize these things to go away, but they just wouldn't go away. And so Ed encouraged her to try in a lucid dream to make them go away. And so she became lucidly aware. She remembered, I want to get rid of my plantar warts. She created healing light around her hands and then put the healing light into each of her feet, intending for the plantar warts to be healed. And she said that when she woke up in the morning, overnight, all the plantar warts had turned black, and within 10 days, they all fell off and never returned. And so you could see how you could actually do a scientific experiment using lucid dreaming to help take care of some issue that, common medical techniques have a hard time dealing with. But there's incredible stories of people who have healed themselves in lucid dreams.
Wow. I mean, that is really incredible. And I bet doctors are not too happy about people using this skill because they're going to make a little less money. But I can see where people have tried going to doctors, right? And they try everything. They try anything they can get over the counter. It doesn't work. They go to the doctors. They don't seem to get the help they need, or the treatments that they are given just don't seem to work. So what would it hurt to try this method? I can't see any downside to trying this method.
It was interesting. One time I was giving a talk, and I was asking all the lucid dreamers in the room, how are you using lucid dreams to help your life? And this one woman raised her hand and said that she was from Canada and that she used lucid dreaming to discover what medical issues people had. And these were up in Canada because they have national health care. Sometimes the doctors, after they've seen a patient and they can't figure out exactly what's wrong with them, they pretty much tell them that we can't help you anymore. And so there's some poor people who the doctors haven't given them a diagnosis, and so they're just kind of on their own. And so this woman had a habit of working with people like that. And so I asked her, well, in your lucid dreams, what would happen? And she said, sometimes I would see the person as like a hologram, and then I would see that, they have 2 illnesses, they have 2 ailments, and that's why the doctors can't figure out the symptoms, is because there's 2 ailments going on. Or she said sometimes she'd become lucidly aware, she'd remember the person had the need to get a diagnosis, and then a voice would have announced the medical tests that they should take. And she said sometimes when they would announce the medical test, it was such an obscure medical test that when she woke up from the lucid dream, she'd immediately run to her computer and Google it, and then she would find that it was some very unheard of test for a very, very rare disease. And I asked her, I said, well, that's really great that you're doing this and helping people, but how often are you correct? And she said, well, so far she'd been 100% correct. She had never had a time where she'd gotten a misdiagnosis. And so So that's another aspect of lucid dreaming, not only becoming consciously aware and directly healing the physical ailment, but also using lucid dreaming to get diagnostic information. Or sometimes in lucid dreams, people will get prescriptive information. I was reading a lucid dream that a friend sent in to the Lucid Dreaming Experience magazine that I helped co-edit. And in the lucid dream, he decided he wanted to heal his knee from hurting so much. But then suddenly a doctor appeared, and the doctor said, sure, you can heal that knee, but I'll tell you, the reason that your knee hurts is because you are stubborn. And the lucid dreamer said, well, what do you mean I'm stubborn? And the doctor says, you know you should be exercising, but you never exercise. And so, sure, you can heal that you can heal that knee right now in this lucid dream, but if you don't exercise, it'll just return, and you'll have to heal it again. And so, and that's kind of, it's kind of beautiful to see that the healing could occur, but at deeper levels, he knew that he needed to exercise, and so he got kind of a prescription that, heal it now. That's great, but your prescription is you better start exercising and strengthening those knee muscles, and then the pain will go away. So the diagnostically, lucid dreaming has really helped some people. Prescriptively, sometimes people have learned of things they should eat or vitamins they should take. Sometimes they've even learned of hospitals they should go to get things resolved. So it's amazing how it works across all these different functions and how lucid dreaming has helped people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Wow. So you can get information that you weren't expecting. And that story that you just gave actually brings up a very interesting point we should probably talk about. And that is, what is it that we're communicating with? Because this lucid dreamer was communicating with a doctor. Now, does that doctor represent the dreamer's inner self? What exactly are we in communication with when all this is going on?
That is really a million-dollar question. One thing that I've encouraged people to do in my books is something that I discovered back in 1985 after I'd been lucid dreaming for 10 years. And what happened, I was part of a dream group, and every month we had a goal to achieve in the lucid dream state. And one month the goal was find out what the dream figures in your lucid dream represent. And so I thought, that's a pretty easy goal. And so I became lucidly aware, followed a woman into an office, went up to a gentleman and asked him, excuse me, what do you represent? And the funny thing is that instead of the dream figure responding, which was normally the case, a voice boomed out a response from high above him. And the response wasn't totally complete, and so I asked for a clarification, and then it boomed out a full response, and then I understood and woke up. But what occurred to me is, well, wait a second, where did this non-visible voice come from? And so after that, Heather, instead of interacting with dream figures all the time and asking them questions, because sometimes dream figures can give good responses and sometimes they just turn away or don't have anything to say or they just respond with gibberish. So instead, I would just shout out to what I call the larger awareness. And so someone might say, I'm talking to my subconscious mind or the unconscious, but I would just shout out to the larger awareness whatever my request or question was, and normally a response would come back. So if I'd ask, show me something important for me to see, then oftentimes the entire lucid dream would change and I'd be shown something. Or if I'd ask, tell me whatever, oftentimes a non-visible voice would boom out a response. And I discovered that many lucid dreamers have also done this as well. I remember reading Stephen LaBerge's first book that came out in 1985, a few months after I had my first experience with this non-visible awareness. And he suggested to lucid dreamers that they become lucidly aware and then they surrender to the lucid dream. For example, they might surrender to the highest. And he said in his book that some of his most profound lucid dreams occurred when he surrendered to the highest. And so that's the beautiful thing here. I think lucid dreaming puts us in touch with an inner layer of awareness, with basically what you might call our inner self. And it is so utterly, incredibly creative and knowledgeable that it truly blows your mind away. It really gets you back to that idea of Carl Jung's of the collective unconscious. But Carl Jung didn't talk about it in mystical kind of terms, but when you interact with this larger awareness, you kind of think of a collective unconscious, almost like a universal mind or something like that.
Sure, or some sort of unseen library that we're able to tap when we get into this state.
It can be almost that incredible that you can pick up information and knowledge that you just think, wow, where did that come from? So that's the beautiful thing about lucid dreaming, and that's why I call my first book Lucid Dreaming: Gateway to the Inner Self. When you stop interacting with dream figures who are probably just projected aspects of yourself in most cases, and ignore them and just shout out questions to your larger awareness, when that response comes back, it's utterly mind-blowing. For example, I was giving some talks in London, and someone asked a question, have I ever in a lucid dream found God or went in search of God or something like that? And I told people that doing something like that, you could always try it if you want to, but normally something like that's going to be so exciting or so energetic that you'll wake up. And if you want to do something that is achievable, then you should do this. Just become lucidly aware and shout out to the larger awareness, hey, let me experience unconditional love. Or hey, let me experience divine grace. Mm-hmm. I told them that if you would try to ask to experience some quality of the divine, that then you'll probably have your mind blown. And so I came back 6 months later to London to give another talk, and there was a woman in the audience who stood up and said that she, in a lucid dream, had shouted out, hey, let me experience unconditional love. And she said the resulting experience was so profound. She said it utterly blew her mind when she began to experience unconditional love. She said that when she finally woke up from this lucid dream, she said she sat in her bed and cried tears of joy for 15 minutes.
Wow.
She said her roommate knocked on the door to be sure she was going to go to work, but she said the experience was such incredibly deep and so amazing that it took her a while to kind of get herself pulled together after it.
It just makes me wonder, if everyone did that, what kind of world would we live in? I think it would be a very, very different world. We got to take another break here, Robert, but wow, I'm glad to have a break coming up. I want to just ruminate on what he just described to us, and I want to talk more about the inner awareness when we come back, which we'll do. Robert Waggoner is here tonight. I'm Heather Wade, and we'll be right back. Robert Waggoner is here tonight, one of my very favorite guests to have on the program, because he has been not only writing about lucid dreaming, but also experiencing lucid dreaming for, 40 years. 40 years. So, welcome back, Robert. So it sounds like, if I'm hearing you correctly, that the making contact with the inner awareness, interacting with the inner awareness, the higher self, the superconscious, whatever we want to call it, is that the key to all of this?
I think it's definitely one of the keys. When you realize that there's a larger awareness and that you can go beyond the dream figures and interact with it, for some people, it really just totally transforms their lucid dreaming. They learn how to experience concepts. they get new information. But just like anything, you have to realize that it can be a little bit complicated, because sometimes you'll make a request or a question and get a literal response, but sometimes you'll get a symbolic response. Like one time I became lucidly aware, and what occurred to me at the moment was, what would my wife like for a birthday present? And so I shouted out to the larger awareness, what would my wife like for a birthday present? And all of a sudden, a little teddy bear appeared. And I looked at it and I thought, good grief, would my wife really like a teddy bear? I just don't think of us as teddy bear people. So anyway, I woke up in the morning and went down to the breakfast table, and I looked over at my wife, and I just decided to ask her flat out. I asked her, I said, Wendy, would you have an interest in a teddy bear for a birthday present? And she looked at me like I was totally crazy, that I'd totally lost my mind. And that's when it occurred to me that it was a symbolic teddy bear, that she wanted me to be a teddy bear, and she didn't want a physical teddy bear.
Oh, so birthday. Just a night in with a nice dinner, right?
Exactly. Just being more attentive and more caring and more huggable and all that kind of stuff. And that would be the real present. And so that's why you have to realize that sometimes when you interact with that larger awareness, that sometimes it'll give you literal responses, but other times it'll give you symbolic responses that then you have to spend some time thinking about in order to understand. In order to interpret.
And that's a big thing when it comes to dreams. I have a list here, and, I printed out this list, and what it is, it's a list of different things that may show up in a dream, and then the interpretation of. And I remembered a long time ago, I took a English college course, and for, I don't know, whatever reason, our instructor brought in a dream expert. And she said something that I'll never forget. She said, don't bother with books that give a bunch of different items or things, or, if a lion shows up in your dream, this is what it means. You know what I mean? Right. She said that the symbology in your dreams is specific to you. Is that true?
I think that's something that almost every dream worker agrees with, that for one person, a dog in a dream might mean loyalty or faithfulness or a good companion. But if you in your life have been mauled by a dog, then a dog won't have that kind of symbolism for you. It'll be something scary and frightful and painful. Mm-hmm. So everyone's symbols are going to be unique to themselves, even though there might be some overlap or concurrence when you begin to talk to people altogether. But yeah, you really do have to look at every dream symbol individually and to that person.
Okay, all right. Well, that solves a lot of work for people. You don't need to go and look up, what does it mean if I see a castle or a butterfly or what have you in the dream? Just look to yourself. What does that symbolize to you? What does that mean to you? For example, if I saw angry dog chasing after me in a dream, yeah, that's scary to me. So that means, I don't know. It depends on the context also, how it appears, what's happening when this figure appears in your dream. But that would indicate to me some sort of fear around a given situation. So do people make contact with their inner awareness right away when they try, or is this something that you have to do a few times to really get in contact with it?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Sometimes it takes a little while, or sometimes when you do it for the first time in a lucid dream, you have to give that larger awareness maybe 5 or 10 seconds to respond. I think its jaw might hit the ground up there in whatever realm it's in, but that you finally ask it a direct question. So sometimes you have to be a little patient and ask a question and wait for a response. Occasionally I'll see lucid dream reports of the person having a hard time asking a question. So They stop in the lucid dream. They remembered they wanted to shout out something like, "Hey, larger awareness, show me something important for me to see." But when they try to announce that, it just gets stuck in their throat. And for me, oftentimes that's kind of a symbolic statement that either the person is afraid of what they might hear, or they have some inner concern. I remember one woman told me that she was a little bit not too excited about this idea that there might be an inner self that you could contact. And so she didn't want to ask, "Hey, show me something important for me to see," because she didn't want to learn something like that. And so what she did instead, she made it really simple. She shouted out, "Hey, show me something hilarious." And as soon as she said that, all of a sudden she said, in the lucid dream there was a road, and suddenly on the road there was this gorilla who was wearing kind of like this multicolored kind of shag carpeting kind of outfit, and it had this groovy walk. And she said it was just the most hilarious thing she'd ever seen in her life, and she just totally fell over laughing in the lucid dream. But again, everyone has to kind of start where they are, you know. So one other thing that I've noticed, Heather, is that oftentimes if you ask an ego-based question, you don't get any response. And so an ego-based question would be someone who becomes lucidly aware and they shout out, "Hey, should I go to college or should I go to work at the bakery?" And there'll just be dead silence. So I think in these kind of issues that need to be decided by the ego self, by the waking self, oftentimes there won't be any commentary on something like that. But if you say, "Hey, show me something important for me to see," or "Hey, let me experience unconditional love," or something like that, a conceptual thing, you'll get all the education you ever want in something like that.
Well, isn't that interesting? I wonder if it's just the way the question is asked. If a person were to ask, "If I keep doing what I'm doing now, where will I end up?" Would you get an answer to a question like that?
You know, that is a wonderful point. Oftentimes, rephrasing a question is the way to get a response, because sometimes in these requests, you realize that your exact wording makes a difference. For example, there was a lucid dreamer who would announce, "Now let me look for art that I can create." And he would spend the entire lucid dream looking for art. And so he realized that this wasn't working. And so then he changed his statement. He said, "Now let me look at art that I can create." And then he would say, then suddenly on a nearby wall would appear all these pieces of art. And he would go up and examine them, and the ones that he liked, he would memorize them, and then he would wake up and make some sketches. So just making a little change of preposition, you know, "Now let me look for art." He spent the whole lucid dream looking for it. And "Now let me look at art that I can create," suddenly it would appear. So how you phrase a question can make tremendous differences. And again, like you pointed out, some of these ego questions, like "Should I go to college or should I work at the bakery?" get no response. But if you ask, show me my most constructive path in life, you might get a response. Well, one time in a lucid dream, I shouted out, "Show me my life as if it was a work of art." And suddenly there in the sky appeared this giant work of art. It was probably 60 feet by 20 feet. And I was just blown away at the creativity of this larger awareness. How could it create this amazing piece of art, you know, in a half second or something? It was just suddenly there, and I just spent the rest of the lucid dream just looking at it and just being blown away by the symbolism and all. So it's amazing what happens, but the incredible thing is the amount of creativity and apparent knowledge here. It's utterly astounding if you become good at interacting with this larger awareness.
Well, what is also astounding is to realize that the inner self, if we're just going to use that term for the rest of the night, gives us exactly what we ask for. Exactly. In the case of the gentleman who wanted to come up with new art, he got exactly what he asked for both times, right? So that does seem like the key in all these different issues people have in the waking world. Like they want to heal themselves, they want to resolve old emotional issues, they want to become more creative, more successful, solve pressing questions, hard questions that adults have to make all the time. Forming the question, the wording of the question seems to be, also making contact with the inner awareness, but how we speak to that inner awareness,
right.
We're going to get exactly what we ask for.
Right, and I think that's something that people see in self-hypnosis and other ways of interacting with the larger awareness, that the wording really matters. Another incredible thing about this is that sometimes the larger awareness will disagree with the person. So it doesn't always agree. It's not a rubber stamper or anything like that. For example, one time a woman, she was part of a lucid dreaming group where they had a monthly goal, and the monthly goal was quite, I thought, outlandish. It was to discover the beginning and end of the universe.
Wow!
And so she becomes lucidly aware, and she announces, "Now let me discover the beginning and end of the universe." And as soon as she says that, this non-visible voice replies, "The universe has no beginning and has no end. The universe is an everlasting cycle." And so in this kind of experience, the larger awareness basically refutes your premise and offers an alternative way of thinking about things. There was another example of my friend Ed Kellogg again. He wanted to experience a superstring from quantum mechanics.
Oh, okay,
so
nice.
He shouted out in the lucid dream, "Now by the power of Alka-Hess, let a superstring manifest." And as soon as he said that, and I'm reading from my book, he writes, "I hear a voice that tells me it does not seem a good idea to do an experiment of this type at this time, as you still seem too unfocused and distracted." And then the voice went on to say, "To do an experiment of this kind requires careful consideration beforehand as to what to do and clear mindful intentionality while doing it." And so then my friend Ed started yelling, "Cancel, cancel," and got the boiling clouds to disappear. But the point I'm trying to get across here is, in that experience, it basically told him, you're not ready for what you're asking for. And so you've got to come back when you have your head together and you're ready for the intensity of it. You know, sometimes, Heather, in these lucid dream experiences, I would ask to experience a concept, but I knew it was going to be powerful, so I would add to my request, I want to experience this, but for just 1 minute. And it was amazing. As soon as I'd say that, I would be in the experience would go on for 1 minute, and then at the end of 1 minute, boom, I'd be back in a regular lucid dream. And that's how amazingly responsive and thoughtful this larger awareness is.
It's like having your own personal holodeck.
You know, it truly is. But the thing about the holodeck is, you know, somebody programmed it. Who programmed the larger awareness?
You're right.
Where does its knowledge come from? Where does that information come from?
And that it can disagree on occasion. I find that very interesting, because now we really are dealing with a higher awareness, a different awareness. It's just not a yes awareness, saying yes to anything that you ask of it. It's going to think about your request and figure out, is that really possible or even good for you right now?
Right, exactly. And in my book, I brought up a quote by Carl Jung, where he said that inside of us, in our unconscious, it might be a psychic system, but somebody would have to show that this psychic system had feeling and affectivity and imagination and creativity. And he listed like 9 characteristics that you would have to see in the unconscious if we were to conceive that it had an inner ego or an inner self. And I have to tell you, in lucid dreaming, in the reports of lucid dreamers, you see all of those characteristics displayed. This larger awareness cares about the lucid dreamer. The larger awareness responds creatively with imagination. The larger awareness responds with all the characteristics. And so I think lucid dreaming might allow us to see that we actually do have an inner self. And the unconscious is just not the repository of all the forgotten events that happen to us in our life, or it's all just the junk of the mind that we no longer pay attention to, that actually in this unconscious is an inner awareness, is an inner self that actually knows more than the ego self does.
That's incredible. And anybody can access this. This is not for special gifted people. This is something any person out there who sleeps at night, so that pretty much covers all of us, can do. Who needs DMT when you got lucid dreaming?
Exactly. You know, and the beautiful thing is, just like your friend who's the Navajo teacher and others, many people have just found that they don't even have to become lucid. They just have to, before they go to sleep, have a clear, pure intent to get information about some issue. And oftentimes the next day or that night, they'll have a dream in which the information comes, or the next day they'll just know what the proper path is. So again, it helps the lucid dream, because the great thing about lucid dreaming is that you can interact with the larger awareness. If you don't understand, sometimes you can ask for clarification, or you can hear its response. Whereas if you do the lucid light version and don't become lucidly aware, then you don't have that kind of back and forth.
You know, we have a prolific mental health issue in our country, right? There's a lot of people suffering trauma. It seems like every day I see someone post something online about PTSD or some other mental health issue. Could we use lucid dreaming to even deal with past traumas?
You know, there's some beautiful examples of people who have used lucid dreaming just for those purposes. Already, some therapists use lucid dreaming to help people with post-traumatic stress disorder, and they teach them to become consciously aware when that recurring nightmare starts to happen. And as soon as they do, and they change just one thing in the lucid dream, then oftentimes the recurring nightmares cease. And so it doesn't take care of all the issues about the PTSD, but if nothing else, the people no longer have recurring nightmares, and so they get a decent, nice sleep and that sort of thing. But the other thing that's happening is that lucid dreamers are realizing that they can resolve phobias or fears in lucid dreams, like a fear of heights or a fear of flying or those kind of things get resolved. We've had examples of people who have dealt with anxiety, addiction, relationship issues. They've resolved them in lucid dreams. And so that's what's beautiful about the dream state. In the dream state, time and space really don't have any meaning. You know, we might have a dream tonight that we're back in our kindergarten classroom with our current friends from today, and we're talking to Rocket Man from the future. I mean, time and space just have no meaning in the dream state. And the beautiful thing is when you become lucidly aware, though, you can use that oftentimes to resolve traumatic issues that have happened to you in the past. I remember one time I was giving a talk in Bogota, Colombia, and there was a woman in the front row who asked wonderful questions, so I knew she was a talented lucid dreamer. And so they had me come back to Bogota 6 months later and give another workshop, and this woman walked in the door, and she looked entirely different. The first time I saw her, she looked like she had all this pain kind of etched into her face, and there's kind of like a dark cloud over her. But when she walked in 6 months later, 80% of that was gone. And so she told the class what she had done is that she had never heard about emotional healing in a lucid dream before. And so after the first workshop, she had a lucid dream. She had devised a plan, and her plan was that when she had become lucidly aware, she would call out for the Virgin Mary. And so, of course, Colombia is a very Catholic country. Mm-hmm. And so in her lucid dream, she shouted out for the Virgin Mary to please come. And she said a woman appeared in a blue cloak, and she asked the woman to please heal my heart. And she said the woman put out her hands, and from her hands came blue light that came into the lucid dreamer's heart. And she said when she woke up, she knew she was a changed person. And you could just literally see it in her face. And so that's how she dealt with this issue of unresolved trauma. I never found out why there was all that pain in her face before, but I have to say that after she had this one lucid dream, 80% of it was gone, and that's the manner she took to rid herself of it.
Wow. Well, oftentimes, does it really matter what the source of the pain is? I think it's more important to solve it, to resolve it.
Exactly.
And, that we can use this technique. It may put a lot of therapists out of business, but what do we have to lose by trying?
And every night we dream, and again, about 70% of the college-age population has had lucid dreams. About 25% of them have about one lucid dream a month. And most of them just play around and don't realize you can do anything. And that's why I've written these books, so people can see how you can use lucid dreaming to really transform yourself, to heal yourself, and to become the best person you can possibly be.
Wow. Well, there's still more ground to cover, and we got to take a break here. But let's say we talk about when we come back, visitations from the other side. A lot of times people will dream of deceased loved ones, and I'd love to get into that to figure out, what are the meanings behind that? Can we really communicate with our loved ones in a lucid dream? I have so many questions, Robert, so we'll get to it when we come back here. Everybody, go get a refill. I'm going to, and I'm learning a lot tonight. I hope this is helpful for everybody out there. I'm Heather Wade, and we'll be right back. Well, if there's any piece of music out there that makes me feel like I'm in the dream world, it's this song. Doesn't that just catapult you right into another world? It does to me. So Robert Waggoner is here. We're talking about lucid dreaming all night long tonight. We're even talking about how to use lucid dreaming to help you, to change your life. You can actually harness this ability. We all have it, right? It's a matter of tapping into it. And welcome back, Robert. So, a lot of unresolved issues come from passed away loved ones, unfortunately. A lot of times we could resolve our emotional issues if we could just talk to that loved one one more time. So is this truly possible in lucid dreaming?
Oftentimes lucid dreamers become lucidly aware, or they realize it's a dream because they see a deceased loved one. And oftentimes, if they know how to think about this and approach it, they can really turn it into an extraordinary moment, but you have to approach it the right way, because sometimes it might just be a symbol. The deceased loved one might be a symbol. And other times, though, it seems that it's an actual visitation, that you're actually interacting with the spiritual awareness of someone who's passed over. And so the first thing I'd suggest, just like any good lucid dreamer, you want to interact with the deceased dream figure and kind of figure out its awareness, figure out its level of awareness. Because if it's incapable of responding or doesn't look you in the eye, there's a good chance that it might just be a symbol, a projection of your own mind. I'll give you an example of what happened to me one time. So my father passed away in 1997. He was in his 80s and had lived a good, long life. And so about 3 months later, I became lucid, and I decided I was going to go find him. And what was amazing is, as soon as I decided I was going to go find him, all the dream figures in that lucid dream told me it was a bad idea. They told me it wasn't time, it wasn't the right time, and that I shouldn't do it. And because they all unanimously said that it was a bad idea, I decided to listen to all the dream figures, and so I made them explain all the dream symbolism in that particular dream to me, and they did a wonderful job of explaining it all. And so when I woke up, I thought, okay, if my dad wants to come to me when he's ready, I'll just let that happen. And so it was about 2 years later, one night I see a ladder, and coming down the ladder is my father. And I immediately become lucid because I realize Dad's been dead. And as he's coming down the ladder, the first thing I do is I start laughing because he has such a bad haircut. And I think, this poor guy cannot even get a good haircut in the after-death state. I mean, that's how hilarious it seemed to me. But then I wondered, I thought, well, wait a second. Is this really my dad as a spiritual being, or is this my dad as a dream symbol, just a projection of my mind? And so to figure that out, when he came down and we greeted each other, I asked him some questions. I said, hey, Dad, you're from the land of the dead. So tell me, when do you think Mom's going to pass away? And he looked at me and he said, probably in about 2 to 6 years. And I said, of what? And he said, a heart condition. And that really surprised me because my mom had never had any heart problems. And I asked him one more question, and then he told me to please be quiet because he had come to tell me things. And he proceeded to spend a few minutes with me telling me things about the family that he wanted me to be aware of and to be looking out for in the future. So when I woke up, I wrote everything down, and it was almost 2 years later exactly, my mom went to the hospital and almost died of a heart problem, and she made it through that. And then about 3 years later, she had been taking some prescribed medication that was actually hurting her heart, and she went back to the hospital and almost died again, but she made it through that period. So what I'm trying to get to here is that by asking questions, you can oftentimes get interesting information that's outside of your own knowing and kind of verify that you're dealing with something more than just a symbol or more than just, the vague rumblings of your subconscious mind.
And particularly if you get information that you would not otherwise know, or information that just seems out of place or odd, something that wouldn't come from your own mind, right?
Right, exactly. I remember I do these online workshops that go on for 30 days, and they're a lot of fun. One time there was a wonderful woman who joined the workshop, and she was a great lucid dreamer. And she told me that she had an interesting experience with her deceased uncle. So in her family, she realized that there was a family secret, because when the entire family would get together for family gatherings, one part of the family, of the extended family, wouldn't talk to the other part. But every time she asked her parents about it, they'd never tell her what the deal was. They just clammed up. And so one night, she sees her deceased uncle. She becomes lucidly aware, and the deceased uncle tells her, if you want to find out about the family secret, then you've got to go to the county courthouse, go up to this specific room on the second floor, go to this specific, and ask for this specific file. And he gave her the number. And he said, if you do all of that, then you'll find out the family secret. And so later that week, she went to the county courthouse. She went up to that room. She asked for the file, and it was the file of the family legal battle one part of the family had sold some of the family's farmland without getting permission from everybody. And it turned into a whole big court battle thing. And that's why now part of the family won't talk to the other family. But her uncle provided her all this information, and he was deceased and gave it to her in a lucid dream. So it's just another example of just a beautiful visitation-type lucid dream that also gives you some evidence that something actually occurred.
Right, is that's verifiable. So this is why, then, it's so important to keep a notepad by the bed, right? Exactly,
because when you wake up, it's so important to immediately begin to write this all down so you don't forget any of the details, because especially when someone gives you, like, here's the number of the file that you have to ask for, you've really got to sit down and really memorize that before you wake up so it's clear in your mind.
And how do you do that in the dream state? I mean, I don't know about other people, but I find this to be something that I have to really put conscious awareness into. I mean, much more even than the waking world. So how does a person remember a string of numbers, an address, a phone number, something like that in the dream world?
You know, the one interesting thing about lucid dreaming is when you realize it's a dream, oftentimes your mental thought process is very clear. You know, you're not worried about, I got to pick up the children from school, I got to do this, got to do that. You just have a very clear mental focus. But after a few lucid dreams, you'll learn that you've really got to pay attention. If you want to memorize something, it's possible, but you really have to focus on it. And that's why, like when someone would ask, let me see art that I can create, they would see the art and they would really look at it, scan it deeply, and kind of commit it to their memory before waking up. And it would be the same thing if someone gave you a telephone number in a lucid dream. You would really, before you woke up, you'd try to rehearse it in your mind over and over so you had it clear in your mind. But you're right, it's one of those things you have to put some really deep intent into, even in the lucid dream state.
Right, yeah, because the dream state, the dream world is fleeting by nature, right? So
exactly.
I guess if you get a phone number, just for an example, you get a phone number in a dream for whatever question that you've asked, maybe repeat that number over and over again, or maybe even in the lucid dream, come up with a notepad and a pen and write it down in the dream so that when you wake up, you've already got that muscle memory of writing something down.
Exactly. Doing whatever technique will work for you to remember that is what you need to do. But as we started out with, the first thing you want to do is be sure you have a pen and paper by your bed, because if you got to jump out of bed and run around the house looking for a pen and paper, you'll probably forget all of the detailed information by the time you find it.
Oh, I can see that happening to me pretty easily. By the time I find the pen, it's gone, you know. So what about then when our deceased loved ones visit us? Can we count that as an authentic visitation every time, or is this sometimes going to be an extension of ourselves coming to talk to us in their form?
You know, I think you have to take care here and all. I remember when my father passed away, in the next couple of weeks, I had a few dreams, and in these dreams, he and I would be sitting at the TWA boarding gate at an airport. And when I'd wake up from these dreams, these were just regular dreams, I thought, what are we doing at a TWA gate? I think by that time, TWA had already gone bankrupt. And then it occurred to me, TWA means Trans World Airlines. And so I'm trying to get my head wrapped around with the idea that my dad is leaving to go to another dimension, another world. And so this was really kind of a symbolic dream of me dealing with my stuff and not so much a visitation dream. Mm. And Also, I'll see this sometimes in dream reports. Sometimes people have a lot of misgivings or a lot of regrets, that they should have done something or whatever, and now someone in the family passed away. And then when they see that person in the dream state or a lucid dream, the deceased person mirrors their regrets, or, so the deceased person appears angry, or the deceased person appears vindictive, or whatever. And so sometimes you'll see these kind of cases where I don't think it's a visitation dream. I think what's happening is the person is having a symbolic reflection of the guilt they feel, of the misgivings, of that kind of thing. And so you do have to take a little bit of care with all of this. But that's the great thing about being lucidly aware, is it's a dream, you can ask them questions, and by the response, you can see, whether it's actually them or if it's just a dream symbol of them.
So I guess you could even ask for verifiable information. If you were asking for a visitation, give me something I can verify in the real world.
Right.
And then if you did get information you could verify in the real world, like one of your examples there, what does that say for near death and after death and the afterlife? In my mind, that's almost proof of an afterlife, because we're talking about information you would not otherwise have access to, and yet it is verifiable in the waking world.
Right, exactly. There's another wonderful example that someone sent in to our magazine that I co-edit, called the Lucid Dreaming Experience magazine. And so this gentleman's name was Karim. And so Karim became lucidly aware when he saw, I believe, one of his aunts appeared in a dream, and he realized that she was dead. And she asked him to come and follow her. And so he said that in the Middle East, there's kind of a tradition that you don't follow deceased dream figures. But because he was lucidly aware, he thought, it's a lucid dream. I'll be able to get through anything. And so the aunt takes him, and he visits these cousins who had passed away, and they all have a wonderful kind of reunion and all. And then one of his family members, who was hit by a car and killed, comes up to him and tells him that his mother, on one night in the Muslim calendar, his mother, who's still alive, tells everyone she's going to bed, but instead this deceased person tells Karim that the mother actually goes up to her room, pulls out all these photos of the deceased person, and basically cries herself to sleep on that particular night. And the woman told Karim that the mother shouldn't do this. It was bad for her health, and that Karim could see that the deceased person was doing just fine, and that he should tell his mother to get over it, or the woman to get over it. And so when Karim wakes up from this lucid dream, he calls the woman and he asks her, on this particular night of the religious calendar, are you going up to your room and pulling out old photos of your deceased loved one and crying over them? And the woman was just totally stunned. She just couldn't believe it. And then he said that the deceased woman had appeared in a lucid dream and told him to tell her not to do this anymore, that it was just unnecessary grieving and wasn't good for her mental health. And so when you have examples like that, again, it kind of gets to this issue of providing additional evidence for the after-death experience, because, again, there's verifiable information that the lucid dreamer has no way of knowing, but other people can verify.
That's amazing. I mean, you've told a lot of stories tonight, Robert, but that one, I mean, you have outdone it outdone yourself with that one. I mean, that's incredible. Unless there was a camera in her room, there would be no way for anybody to know what was going on this particular day and what she would do on that particular day. There's no way anyone would know that.
Right, exactly. And in fact, that particular issue of our magazine, which was June 2016 of the Lucid Dreaming Experience magazine, it was a special issue devoted to lucid dreams of the deceased. And there's just some beautiful lucid dreams in there of people interacting with deceased loved ones. And also not only deceased loved ones, but also deceased pets. People love their cats and dogs, and sometimes when they see them in the dream state, they become lucidly aware when they realize that, our dog died 3 years ago. And what's interesting about some of these lucid dreams with pets is that in the lucid dream state, the pet will have the capacity to speak with them. And some of the conversations are just amazing. It's just like, wow. But I know, and I would normally not think too much about this, except my wife and I had 2 cats that have both passed away. But while these cats were alive, sometimes in lucid dreams or semi-lucid dreams, they would come and tell me things that they wanted. For example, our cat Penny, we got this cat. It was a beautiful Abyssinian cat, and it would never let us pick it up.
Oh, I have the same problem with my cat, actually.
You'd try to pick it up, and it'd scratch you or howl, and you'd put it down.
Oh, certain death is near if you pick her up.
Exactly. And so what happened, one night in a dream, the cat came to me, and it told me in a little cat voice how it wanted to be held. And then it showed me how it wanted to be held. And it was so hilarious. And so I woke up in the morning, I stepped out into the hallway, and there was the cat, just like I had seen it in this semi-lucid dream. Immediately, it allowed me to hold it exactly in the way I'd seen in the dream. I walked downstairs to the breakfast table where my wife was, and my wife about flipped. For 2 years, the cat had not let anybody hold it. And here I was walking around with the cat, and my wife asked me, "How did you get it to allow you to hold it?" And I said, "It came in a lucid dream and told me how it wanted to be held." and so the beautiful thing is, when you start talking to lucid dreamers who have experience, some of them have some wonderful animal stories of animals communicating with them and giving them information. And also, it's very funny to hear my cats when they were alive speak to me in their little cat voice too. That was quite hilarious.
Oh yeah, right. Now I have to do this. Oh my gosh! I mean, fixing my life. Let's just put that aside. I want to talk to my cat now. Because lately there's this weird thing. Most of the time, she's one of these cats that is kind of like, you know what, I really don't need you. She only needs me when it's feeding time, and even then, just put the food down and walk away, human. So she's kind of aloof most of the time. Well, lately, this weird thing has started where she follows me all around the house all the time, and she's meowing as if something's wrong. And she's even attacked me a couple of times, which is very out of character for her.
Oh, wow.
And there's a certain spot, and it's really weird. If I walk past a certain spot out of the kitchen into the living room in the house, she will jump up and grab my leg, and she's in attack mode. And she's never, ever been like that before. I mean, she's a marshmallow, really. She's very kind. She'll let anybody pet her and stuff. So how would I do that? Is it just getting into the lucid dream state and ask, I want to talk to my cat? I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. It's on the air here for everyone to hear. Would I just ask to speak with her? Is it that easy?
I think that would be a good start. Oftentimes when a person falls asleep with an intent to talk to their cat or get medical advice or whatever, like if they wanted to get medical advice, all of a sudden they might become lucidly aware when they find themselves in a hospital and think, well, how did I get here? Oh, this is a lucid dream. And so if you go to sleep thinking, oh, I want to talk to my cat, I want to figure out what's going on with this issue, you might find yourself in a situation where the cat suddenly appears and you become lucidly aware, and then you could ask it directly, or if you became lucidly aware and it wasn't there, then you could ask for it to appear, or you could shout out to the larger awareness, hey, help me, show me what's wrong with my cat, or show me why my cat seems so troubled, and then you might get a response of some type. But that's how I would approach it. But, yeah, that sounds like a really interesting set of circumstances there.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. She's never, and I should add that she's utterly and totally spoiled. So, she probably eats 2 or 3 times a day to my one. So I make sure and take care of her before I'm taking care of me. So, she's got everything a cat could possibly need, including plenty of catnip and toys and all of that. But I just can't figure it out for the life of me. I'm trying to figure out, what is it that you need? You've got everything, water, food, expensive kind of food, everything in the world. So I would love to, I want to try this. Now I'm going to be trying this tonight. And we got another break coming up. I had no idea that was even a possibility. Plus, I'd just like to hear what her voice would sound like. That would be hysterical. Let's take another break, Robert. Robert Wagner is here. We're talking about how to use lucid dreams, how to harness the power of lucid dreams. And you know what? This is some pretty incredible stuff tonight. Let's open up the phones when we come back. I'm Heather Wade. Well, let's just go ahead and open up the phone lines now, because I imagine we're going to get some dream stories, and we're going to need plenty of time for everyone. So start dialing up and manipulating those telephonic devices now so that we have enough time for everyone. And if you haven't caught the phone numbers, they're all on the website, midnightinthedesert.com. You can get all the numbers there. There's a link that says how to listen and sign up. And if you click on that, you'll find all the phone numbers. And shameless promotion here, if you scroll down just a little bit, there's also a link that says become a time traveler, and that's how you'll get the most out of this program, is becoming a time traveler. If you can't stay up late at night, right? Maybe you want a lucid dream before you listen to a program. Well, that is the way to do it. Then you don't have to stay up to listen live. You can listen to any show at any time, whenever you want it. So I do look forward to hearing all of your calls tonight. And Robert, welcome back to the show. I got to tell you something funny that just happened. So I ran out to get a coffee refill, and here comes a kitty, as she always does lately, and she comes running after me, and I turned around and I said, so, are you ready to talk in our dreams? You ready for this? And the funniest thing happened. She sat down, just as cute as you please, like cats do. She sat down and she just looked right at me and meowed as if, yeah, I'm ready for that. It's about time.
You know what, Heather? After I had a number of lucid dreams or semi-lucid dreams where I'd interact with my cats, I literally started to talk to them, and sometimes I'd make agreements with them. For example, our one cat started to scratch its neck, and so we changed its food like 3 or 4 or 5 times because we thought it might be an allergy, but it just kept scratching its neck. And finally, I looked at it, and I just told it, I go, look, if you stop scratching your neck, I'll give you a little bit of yogurt every day, but you've got to stop scratching your neck. It's driving us crazy. And darned if it didn't stop that day. And I just kept giving it a little bit of yogurt every day. And so we had our yogurt agreement. But I'll tell you, the cats are much more able to communicate. It's just that we oftentimes think that they're incapable of expressing themselves. So in the lucid dream state or in the regular dream state, you might see it happen. So good luck with that. And hope you all can sit down and and have some good moments.
Oh, I'll let you know how it goes. Trust me, you'll get an email about this because I'm going to blame it all on you.
Yeah. It'll be a new chapter in your life of the cat. So
yeah, totally. Well, the funny thing is that, like I said, lately she's just kind of following me around, and she's sort of always done that, but not in the way that she's doing it now. It's almost like something is wrong, and so I expected her to just continue following me around. But when I said, "Are you ready to talk?" she just sat down as if, "No, I don't need to follow you around anymore. We're going to talk, right?"
Good.
Oh, my gosh. All right. Well, let's dive into calls if you're ready for it. I mean, I still have some questions I want to talk to you about. Precognitive dreams, possibly looking into the future or the past or those kind of things. But we've got people with questions, and I don't want to keep them waiting. So everybody that's on the line right now, please stay on the line so that we can get to you. We'll head to North American Skype first. North American Skype, you're on the air with Robert Waggoner. Welcome to the program.
Good evening, Heather and Robert.
Oh, good evening. Glad to have you.
And just as you said that, my cat showed up and started getting demanding. It's a conspiracy.
They're going to take over. You know that, right? One day they're going to take over and be running everything.
Absolutely. Well, I have to say to Robert, I'm thrilled that you mentioned Carlos Castaneda, because he is my primary mentor. And I have been doing this for almost 40 years. And I've noticed that I've moved through phases of the dreaming work. And I was wondering if you had noticed this sort of thing. Like, for instance, when I first started, it seemed like I was continually being surprised. And I was kind of coming from a really almost instinctive level. And then over time, it progressed where it's more like my waking personality and my dreaming personality kind of coalesced. And so I would react in the dream time like I would when I was awake. And then I noticed at the same time that was happening, that it was across the board when I was awake, that I was increasing all psi skills. And to the point now where it's in a phase where there are things that are going on that I can't even talk about, because it's just, for one thing, it's private and happens between me and people that I work with. And some of it is just, but the point I'm trying to make is that it's like a continuity of spirit is building. And I was wondering if you noticed that over your long-term dreaming workers.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think you have a really good point here. I might talk about it in a little bit different terms, but for me, I think when our conscious mind begins to integrate more with our unconscious mind, that then we're much more likely to have these kind of moments of psi, where we know things without knowing how we know. We just know them, and then they turn out to be the case. Or we'll get insight into situations that we just wouldn't normally have. But in these lucid dreams, when our conscious awareness interacts with our unconscious awareness, it's kind of like neurologists say that nerves that fire together wire together. And so when we get into this habit of interacting with our unconscious, that as the years progress, then it just naturally leads to kind of a greater psi development. So that doesn't surprise me at all. I think it's very commendable that you've been able to stay at this for 40 years.
And thank you for the call, because that gives us all a little bit of insight into what to expect. You know, if we go on this journey, it's going to evolve. We will be surprised by things. There could very well be a merging of your personality in the dream world to your personality in the waking world. And
right. And in my workshops, I often talk about living lucidly. And so sometimes we'll get insights about how things actually work in our lucid dreams, and we'll bring those insights into our waking life. And as a result, we'll live more lucidly. We'll see through issues in a new way, and we'll just approach things in a different way. So I think North America Skype really has something. Also, I did want to say that you'll see this development of abilities also occur with spiritual practices. In my second book, Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple, we talked to a woman, Claire Johnson, who's a wonderful meditator. And so in her lucid dreams, she began to meditate, and she found in her lucid dreams that she would get to a very deep level within a minute or two in her lucid dreams. Well, as she started to meditate more in her lucid dreams, suddenly in the waking state, what used to take her 20 minutes to get into a deep state in her meditation, all of a sudden in 4 or 5 minutes she would get there. So what I'm trying to get across is this idea that these practices that you perform in a lucid dream can clear out the barriers and make certain things much, much easier than they ever had been before.
Mm-hmm. And if we're not using this whole entire other world that we have access to, it seems like to me if we don't tap into it, that we're missing out. Is what it sounds like to me.
Well, but the other thing is, a lot of people tap into it, but they just play around. They go flying. They talk to dream figures. They have lucid dream sex. That they just, in a certain sense, kind of spend the time on trivialities. And that's why I've written these books, is for a lot of people, they could be lucid dreamers for 30 years, and it would never occur to them that they could use lucid dreaming to heal their physical body. Or it would never occur to them that they could use lucid dreaming to get information from their subconscious mind if they just stopped talking to dream figures and just begin to interact with this non-visible awareness. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I write these books, is to kind of encourage people to take this deeper, because there's a lot of people that are there in the shallows, dancing around in the shallows, but out there in the deep water, there's some amazing stuff going on.
Well, that is certainly clear tonight. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air with Robert Wagner. Welcome to the show. Oh.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome to the program.
How are you doing?
Pretty good tonight. How about you?
I'm doing all right. This is Dan calling from Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Well, good to hear from you, Dan, especially as a first-time caller. What's on your mind?
My first time calling any program ever, so...
Wow. Wow. Well, we promise we won't bite. Not this time, anyhow.
Okay.
It's only on about the fourth or fifth call that we start to bite.
Okay. I made it just in time then.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically what I wanted to know, I was my mom's full-time caregiver for 6 years, and she passed away, and I ended up finding her, and, it was a pretty traumatic experience. But since then, that happened in 2011. Since then, I do have a lot of dreams about her. But in my dreams, I'm not lucid. I don't realize I'm dreaming, but I do realize she's dead. And I even ask her in the dream sometimes, hey, you're supposed to be dead. And she seems indifferent. Sometimes she, doesn't seem like her. So I'm gathering from what I heard from him earlier, it's probably some kind of a dream symbol. Where would I get more information on that? And also, how would I take the step from realizing that she's dead into realizing I'm a dream?
Right. So no, that's a good question. Because sometimes, even in lucid dreams, the lucid dreamer will tell the deceased dream figure, "Hey, Mom, do you know you're dead?" And the deceased mother dream figure will say, "No, I'm not. I'm here. I'm obviously still alive." And so just the fact that you have told her on occasion that, "Oh, Mom, don't you know you've passed away?" and she seems indifferent, it still might actually be a visitation dream, but it's a little bit hard to tell. The one thing that I do want that you bring up, Dan, is that there's actually levels of lucid awareness. Sometimes we're just kind of semi-lucid. So we're in the dream. We know that Mom has passed away, and so we know that's, in a sense, not right. And so we know it's kind of dreamy, but we just go along with everything. So that's kind of a semi-lucid dream. We just kind of accept it and keep going. And so what you really need to do here is just increase your awareness. And so you could make suggestions to yourself. The next time I see my mom in a dream, I'll stop and realize, oh, this must be a dream, and then I'll ask her the question that I want to ask her, which is whatever. And so if you have a plan in mind and you suggest to yourself that you're going to do that the next time you see her in the dream state, then you'll be much more likely to become lucidly aware, and then you can interact with her and hear what she has to say.
Mm-hmm. All right. It's almost like a form of hacking or programming our own mind to do what we want.
It really is. You really have to kind of increase your critical awareness and then also have a plan, because just wanting to see Mom is okay, but you'll probably kick yourself later that you didn't ask her a question or you didn't do X, Y, Z. And so if you figure out in the daytime a plan and then you suggest that it's going to happen the next time, you're much more likely to have success.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate the call very much, because there's probably a lot of people out there thinking along the same lines with other loved ones. So hopefully that answer can apply to a lot of people out there. And again, thank you very much for the call. We'll go to line 4 here. You're on the air with Robert Wagner. Welcome to the program.
Hi, it's Colby from Wisconsin.
Oh, hi, Colby. How are you?
Doing all right tonight.
All right. Glad to hear it.
I've made attempts at lucid dreaming, and I don't know, it seems like I missed my cue or something, and I wake up and I'm like, oh, wait, my cue was in that dream. How'd I miss it? Should I, change my cue, or how do I approach that?
Well, so tell me, Colby, do you have some dream sign that you're hoping will help you become lucidly aware?
Yeah, I associate horses with dreams, so I, pick the horse, and I have dreams with horses in, but I don't realize I'm dreaming until I wake up.
Yeah, so I think in this case, you might want to pick something else, and here's how I suggest in my books that a person go about it. So on some night, you focus your mind and you tell yourself, tonight I'll have a very clear dream in which I receive a dream sign that'll help me become lucidly aware. And so you're asking your larger awareness, your subconscious mind, to give you a dream sign that'll help you become consciously aware. Because it sounds like horses aren't doing it. I mean, you see the horses and you're happy to see them, but you don't become lucidly aware. So you've got to ask your larger awareness to give you a dream sign that'll help you become lucidly aware. And sometimes it'll be an object. Sometimes it'll be like an activity, like if you see people floating. Whenever you see someone floating, you'll know it's a dream. It'll be something, but there'll be something unusual that'll happen that'll help you become lucidly aware.
Mm. Does that help, Colby? I said, does that help?
Yeah. I also find this cat thing fascinating, because there's been a couple of times when my cat has woke up and apparently attempted to tell me a dream, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could understand what you were trying to say. He makes all kinds of strange sounds like he's trying to talk.
Oh, well, see, you're a step ahead of me on that, at least. So what would she do? Would she just say, speak to me in English, speak a little more clearly, or the next time I dream, I'll be able to freely communicate with my cat? Or how does she handle that?
Sometimes when I was working with my cats, I would tell them, if the answer is yes, go over there, and if the answer is no, go over there. and then they would walk over to where, one of the two places, and I would get a response. Or sometimes when I'd let the cats out, I'd tell them, now when you come back, just flash that you're at the front door, just flash it to my mind, and then I'll come down and let you in. And so I'd be up in my office typing away or something, and then all of a sudden I'd have a flash of the cat at the door, and I'd run downstairs, and there would be the cat at the door. But you've just got to get used to giving them ways of communicating with you, because that's the only way to make it happen, so you can set up the choices. If you want to do this, go that way. If you want the other thing, go that way. And if you don't like either of those, just stay seated where you are. So that's how I learned how to communicate with my cats. It was a lot of fun. But the first thing I had to do was really actually realize in lucid dreams that the cats were actually more thoughtful and knowledgeable than I'd ever considered, and that they wanted to communicate. It was just that we had kind of a language barrier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have friends that say animals communicate telepathically all the time. And I said, oh, now come on, that's crazy. You've said a lot of things that are off the deep end, and that tops them all off. And he goes, no, think about it. How do you know when your cat wants to play? How do you know when she wants tuna? How do you know any of these things? Does she tell you? Does she write a note and leave it for you on the kitchen table? No, you're getting that information in your mind. How do you know when she wants to be pet? And I thought, I have no idea. I don't know how I know that. She says, well, because the animal is putting these images in your mind. You have to learn that this can be a two-way communication. So, as far-fetched as it sounds, I think there's something to that. I think there's a lot more to that. And so, animals don't speak English, at least not in the waking world, but we can at least attempt to try to communicate with them telepathically, as wild as it sounds.
Exactly.
Let's go over to, let's go to line 2. You're on the air with Robert Waggoner. Welcome to the program.
Good evening. I've got 3 questions. 2 of them are real quick, and then the third one's kind of the whopper, so I'm saving the best for last. But going to number 1 real quick, what food, herb, nutrient, vitamin, or supplement are worth experimenting with to aid in more vivid and active dreaming?
So the B vitamins help with memory. And so a lot of times some people take B vitamins before they go to sleep to help them have good dream recall. There's also some people occasionally get information about food items that they ought to add to their diet to increase their lucid dream recall. So things that I've heard about are sometimes people are told to have more eggs in their diet. Sometimes people are told to have something like asparagus in their diet. There is one supplement out there, but it's a pretty powerful herb. It comes from the red spider lily, and so it's something that you might read about when it comes to lucid dreaming. But normally these other simple things like just having good vitamin B before you go to sleep and paying attention to any dreams that would suggest something. Mm-hmm. What's question number 2?
Oh, yes. I know they've had these devices for at least 10 years. I've seen them before in the past when I was interested in this lucid dreaming. And there are devices that are designed to help you with even lucid dreaming or for memory recall your dreams. And what they do is they sense the REM. They're different tech devices, and they sense your rapid eye movement. And then they can either flicker like a little light on your eyelid, or I don't know all the. I'm sure there's several now. What have you experimented with any of those, and anything successful you think is worth trying on that category?
I do think that's a good possibility. You have to be sure that you read the reviews and all. I remember one time a fan read my first book, and he sent me his device that he had created. And so I tried to program it the first night, and it didn't work. And so then the second night, I really spent some time programming it so that it would flash lights in my eyes at the appropriate time. And that night, I was driving down the highway. All of a sudden, I saw a car in the ditch because of the snow, and it was flashing red lights. And I saw those red lights, and I thought, wait a second, that's the dream sign. And I became lucidly aware and went on and had a great lucid dream. The only thing is, when I woke up, I looked at the little device the guy had sent me, and again, the device hadn't worked. I could tell that it hadn't worked right. So it was just the expectation of seeing red flashing lights that helped me become lucidly aware. But there are some out there. I think I saw a new one out there called Aurora, and that to me seemed like one that looked like it was pretty well made. But again, you have to read the reviews and caveat emptor.
Yeah, right. No kidding. Always. Well, we're going to have to take a break and get the whopper of a question when we come back here. And look, Robert Waggoner is my guest tonight. We're talking about lucid dreaming, how to use lucid dreaming, and the phone lines are open. When we come back, it's going to be after the midnight hour, so you're welcome to join the conversation. I'm Heather Wade. We'll be right back. Well, we have a whopper of a question just waiting for us, so we might as well get right to it, shall we? Robert, welcome back to the show. And by the way, fantastic conversation all night tonight. Let me see. Let's find out what our whopper of a question is. You are back on the air, and lay it on us, man. What do you got?
Okay, ready for the whopper. It's sort of a two-part thing, but here it goes. So let me get the second part of it. But I would assume that Carl Jung has played a central role in your learning and ideas about dreaming and the collective and where all this information comes from. And but what always disturbs me about just the focus on Carl Jung, but I'm wondering whom would be the best current luminaries that have advanced upon, Jung's foundational concepts. I mean, has it moved much beyond him that would focus on the dreams and his ideas about the collective? And then what the second part of this is that the other disturbing thing about, at least from a historical perspective, is now that we have come to the technologies of audio visual, we have television, movies, VR, virtual reality, fantasies coming on, and sort of the collective of the internet. What sort of impact is that? It's like a collision in a way between that and our dream life that was more our collective and was more personally informative. And now we have this more generic thing that may be getting more power or control, and we're losing what was our personal connection with all of this, if you know what I'm trying to get at. But anyway, that's it.
Okay, those are some pretty whopper questions. The best current luminary on dreams, I think what's happening is that the study of dreams, and there's the International Association for the Study of Dreams, which I'm a member of. They have a refereed scientific journal called Dreaming, and the editor is a professor at Harvard. And so there is an organization that really looks deeply at the science of dreaming. And so if you want to join the International Association for the Study of Dreams, please go to asdreams.org and sign up. And it's an extraordinary organization because not only do you have people who study it in the sense that Carl Jung did, but we now have a kind of a more fractured focus, I'd say. There's people who are studying it from a neurophysiological basis. So, there's the J. Allen Hobsons of the world and the Martin Dresslers of Germany and all, who are looking at dreams and lucid dreams neurophysiologically. There's other people who are looking deeply at lucid dreaming, people like Stephen LaBerge, Jane Gackenbach, myself, Ed Kellogg, and others. So it's all getting a little bit more fractured, and maybe some of that has to do with this internet, because the internet is kind of the waking version of a collective unconscious. I have friends all around the world now, and this would not have been possible without the internet. But in this collective sense, maybe before the internet ever came along, that dreams were a kind of collective unconscious, and they continue to be a collective unconscious. So things have really changed, and so you just got to kind of jump into the river and swim with whatever current appeals to you.
Interesting. I never thought about the internet affecting the collective unconscious, but I guess it is rather an extension of the collective unconscious, the internet. Interesting. Let's see here. We'll go to line 4, and you're on the air with Robert Wagner. Welcome to the program.
Good evening. My question regards, I lost my train of thought. Repetitive dreaming, like when you have the same dream several times. I can't think of the word for that right now.
Oh, recurring?
Recurring, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding recurring dreams, Mr. Wagner, do you have any advice to bring back the recurring dreams I had when I was younger?
So you want them to return?
Yes.
I see. So in general terms, recurring dreams oftentimes have to do with a recurring issue in our life. So, for example, there's a lot of people who have a recurring dream that they're late for the test, that they're going back to school to take the test, but they're late, or they're coming there and they don't have all their clothing on, or something like that. So that's kind of a recurring dream of not being prepared. But a person might also have recurring dreams that are more pleasurable, and it sounds like that's kind of what you're headed towards. The only suggestion that I would have is to incubate before you go to sleep, to ask for that experience to return, or to ask for what it symbolically represented, like if the recurring dream had to do with freedom, like you had dreams of flying as a child, that you could fly all over and whatever, but it really was a representation of freedom, then I would ask before I go to sleep, tonight in my dreams, let me experience a wonderful sense of freedom. Mm-hmm. And, if you want to say flying, you can say flying, but probably what's really going on is the sense of freedom. Mm. So that's the only way that I could think of bringing them back, is just to incubate before you go to sleep and to clearly request them to come back.
Mm-hmm. And then if there's a central theme to those recurring dreams, focus in on that central theme to sort of bring that back, like the sense of freedom you were talking about.
Right.
Okay. Right. All right. Well, interesting, because I've never heard of someone who wants to bring back their recurring dreams. Most of the time, it's the other way around. So those must have been some really nice recurring dreams. I'm almost a little reluctant to ask what they were about. But if they were that good, he wants to bring them back, they must have been interesting or pretty good dreams. So thank you for that call. That is unusual, and that's always what I'm after. First time caller line once again. You're on the air with Robert Wagner, and welcome to the program.
Hello.
Well, good evening.
Oh, good evening. My name is Suzanne. So I have a question for you, please. I've been dreaming for decades since I was a very small child, very vivid. I've had many wondrous experiences and met many wondrous beings. And so not all of them were friendly or nice. And I'm wondering if you could maybe speak to me about the types of beings that tend to be more antagonistic. Sometimes I've had experience where it seems to be they're kind of trying to be controlling or trapping, or they're somehow... I'm not sure. Sometimes I felt like they're almost kind of using you like a battery, where I've kind of woken up and realized that they've kind of run the same dream by me over and over again, where it's been kind of stressful. And also, I've had a couple also since I've been very young, where there's a certain kind of being that has been able to inflict. This always occurs, like to push me out of dreaming immediately, where I get like stabbing pain, always in the rib area. And I would like to take my response off the air, please.
Well, you're certainly welcome to it, and thank you for the call, because I was going to bring that up. Thank you for that. Robert, I was looking things up about being attacked in our dreams and such. Is there anything we can do about that?
Well, it's a great point that Suzanne brings out, that She's been having various experiences. She's had very vivid dreams. She's had some wondrous beings, but then she's had a whole nother set of dreams that where the dream figures seem to be antagonistic or controlling or trying to trap her or something like that. And so I would say that this is the process that I use. Is the first thing I ask myself is this symbolic? Does it somehow relate to what's going on in my current life? So let's say that Suzanne might be working at a school or a store or something, and 20 years ago a boss came who was antagonistic and controlling, and all of a sudden she started to have dreams of antagonistic and controlling and trapping figures. And so then we would realize that, oh, what's really going on here is she has these feelings about her work environment or her marriage or her situation where the sense of being controlled or being trapped or whatever or pushed around is fundamental. And so first you got to look at that issue. Does this reflect to something that's going on in my life? You know, what's going on in my life where I feel I'm in an antagonistic relationship? What's going on in my life where I feel controlled or trapped? That's the best way to look at it. Mm-hmm. Because the problem is a lot of times people will say, oh, no, these are spiritual attacks, these are demons, these are whatever, and they'll just immediately go to that without even looking first at their life. So if you look at that first, and that makes no sense in your current life, you know, you have a happy marriage and a wonderful job and all that kind of stuff, you know, then you have to think a little bit more deeper and start to get into it and try to get back to, you know, when this first occurred and what's it all about. So one thing that I do is what I call a dream of clarification. So if I have a confusing dream symbol or something happen, I'll, like, let's say I got controlled or trapped in a dream, and this has been occurring for 20 years or whatever. Mm-hmm. The next night, I would ask my larger awareness, I'd go, look, last night I had this dream of being controlled and trapped. Tonight, I want you to give me a dream of clarification to explain to me what this issue is about and how it connects to me and my life. And please make it a very simple dream so I can simply understand it. Oftentimes when you ask for a dream of clarification, all of a sudden it becomes clear what the issue is. And who knows, you know, it might be your children. Your children are the ones who are controlling you. The children are the ones who are trapping you. The children are the ones who are pushing you around and that sort of thing. But when you ask for a dream of clarification, sometimes you can get to the root of these issues. But that's how I would approach it. So that would be my take.
Okay, so if we have dream figures, they're not always evil spirits, demons, what have you. Sometimes this is just illustrating an issue that we have.
Right, and sometimes it's an issue we're not even aware we have. I mean, like any parent would love their children, but a lot of parents, if you had a drink or two with them, would admit to you that their children are antagonistic, the children are trying to control them, the children make them feel trapped. I mean, they love their children, but they also have these other feelings. And so sometimes when they deny these feelings on the surface level, you know, and try to keep everything nice, then the feelings have to go somewhere. They have to be expressed somehow, and they appear in the dream state. But anyway, the first thing to do is look at yourself and how does this connect with my current life, especially when those dreams occur, because they might only occur around the holiday seasons when you feel real stressed out. Or they might only occur, you know, at certain times when you're super busy at work or whatever. So you have to kind of be a little bit specific. But and then from there, I'd ask for a dream of clarification. And then from there, it'd probably be a good idea to talk to someone who is a professional dream worker and work that out.
Mm-hmm. Well, the dream of clarification, that sounds like a very powerful tool that could solve a lot of problems. And also, what I'm picking up on tonight as well is I think there's a level of honesty in the dream world that we just don't have in the waking world, either with ourselves or with anyone we interact with. Is that true?
I think that's really the case. Oftentimes, our larger self gives it to us pretty straight, but sometimes it's in symbolic ways, and we just don't get it. And sometimes, too, we're all of us are beautiful people, and all of us are God's creatures, but sometimes we don't realize that in trying to be good people and trying to be nice, that sometimes that we have feelings that we're denying and ignoring and repressing. And then those, as Carl Jung said, they become the shadow, and they're the kind of shadow elements that torment us in the dream state. But when we recognize them and we come to terms with them, then they disappear and evaporate because we finally recognize them and come to understand them. But anyway, it's a wonderful question of Suzanne's, and I wish her the best with it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I hope that her asking that question, again, like so many questions tonight from the callers out there, can be applied to other people in their situations, right? So let's hope for that. On line 1, you're on the air with Robert Wagner. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Heather. Thanks for taking my call. This is Blake in New York.
Well, you bet, Blake. Welcome to the program.
All right, I got 2 questions, a quick one and then a longer one. My first question is, I've been trying lucid dreaming for a long time, and the biggest problem I come up with is something you touched on, but you didn't. I was just kind of hoping you'd expand on it. Is that excitement you get, where you get so excited you just wake yourself up? How do I suppress that?
Right. Yeah. In all of my books, I give people kind of 3 basic steps when they become lucidly aware. The first thing you want to do is reduce your emotions. Oftentimes, people get so excited that they become lucid that they get so excited they wake up. And so what I encourage people to do, as soon as you become lucidly aware, tell yourself to calm down. If you're looking at something exciting, like, you have Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie there and you're all excited, and then you realize this must be a dream, stop looking at them, look down at the floor, something boring, that'll help you calm down. But normally, if you tell yourself to calm down or look at something boring like the floor or your hands, that'll reduce the emotional energy. And then the next thing you want to do is kind of enhance your awareness. For example, you might want to announce in the lucid dream, greater clarity now, or more awareness now. And I know this is something that OBE people use as well, but it is a good idea to kind of enhance your awareness. You might want to rub your hands together in the lucid dream to kind of get the kinesthetic senses going, that you're there in the lucid dream. You might want to touch something just to kind of ground yourself in the lucid dream. And then the final thing for especially new lucid dreamers is you really have to maintain your focus in the lucid dream. And what I mean is, you become lucid, you reduce your emotions, you enhance your awareness, and then you go exploring, and you'll come across something that's so interesting that you'll forget that you're having a lucid dream, and you'll return to regular dreaming. And so you got to keep reminding yourself every 15 or 20 seconds, this is a lucid dream, I'm dreaming this. This is a lucid dream, I'm dreaming this. Because otherwise, it's easy to return to a lucid dream.
That's what's going on.
That's what I would do.
That's really interesting, because that's my whole problem right there. You hit on it. I'm jumping in the middle of your question. I'm so sorry, Blake, but that's what's been going on with me this entire time. I think I'm in a lucid dream, and then it goes away, and I go back to just a regular dream. So it's just not holding. Okay, well, that was incredibly helpful, Blake. What's your next question? I'll get out of the way here.
No, that was definitely helpful. My second question is, I guess it kind of ties to a story. Well, I had this really bizarre dream where very early on in the dream, I became lucid and I realized it was a dream, but all the characters in the dream were telling me it wasn't. And I've never had anything happen like that before, and it struck me as really bizarre. But what ended up happening in the dream was I accidentally killed two of my friends in this really bizarre accident, and it happened when I became lucid. So all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm in a dream. I was driving in a car really fast, circling around a bonfire. I'm like, okay, I'm in a dream. I'm being crazy. Let me stop. I hit the brakes. I slide into the fire, and it like splashes the fire into my friends, and it blows up this big, fantastic explosion. And immediately I'm like, all right, this is a dream. Normally, when I realize that, I wake up, and all the people that are there, they're looking at me, and they're like, this isn't a dream. Like, why would you even come to that conclusion? You can't accept what you just did. So now I'm kind of in this paradox where I'm confident that it's not real, but they're telling me that it is. And
Right.
The weirdest part about it was that this whole dream lasted for months. It was like I lived this whole other life. And when I actually woke up, I still accepted that reality. And in the dream, I was checking my Facebook every day, getting these hate messages all the time. When I really woke up and I checked my Facebook and saw that there was no hate messages, I checked my friend's Facebook, saw that they were still alive, and I had to call into work. I was so just mind blown. I couldn't accept what was happening. I didn't know if that was real or what I woke up to was real. So is that common or?
Well, your situation is not very common, but it has happened to some lucid dreamers. So I think what's going on in this particular situation, if this was my dream, it sounds like you became lucid and you were kind of driving around so fast that even you recognized that you were kind of out of control. And then, of course, in the lucid dream, your two friends get killed and everyone starts to kind of give you a guilt trip kind of thing. And so if I had this lucid dream experience, I would ask myself, do I, on some inner levels, worry that by lucid dreaming, I might do damage to myself or others? Because sometimes people hear about lucid dreaming and they have kind of a little bit of fearful concern. Will I be able to tell waking reality from dreaming reality? Will I do something that might harm myself? Mm-hmm. And so then they'll find in their lucid dreams these kind of dream figures who, are kind of telling them, oh, you've done damage, or, oh, this is real. You've actually hurt these people. And so sometimes the lucid dream will show to us that we have an issue that we need to kind of resolve. But that's what I would say if that was my particular lucid dream. I don't know if that makes any sense, Blake.
Well, let's find out. Gosh, I got to take a break right now. Blake, does that help at all?
Yeah, no, that's great. I don't need to take up any more time. Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, no worries. Thank you very much for the call, then. Interesting stuff tonight, I tell you what. So I'd only have a few seconds here, but international Skype line, we can get you on the air when we come back from the break. Does that sound good?
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Well, that's what we'll do. And there's still more coming. There's a lot of people that want to talk to you tonight, Robert. So we'll get that done. Final break of the night tonight. And if you want to get in and ask Robert Wagner a question about lucid dreaming or anything we've talked about so far tonight, you're welcome to do that. We'll be right back, everybody. Well, I think I just came up with the question I want to ask my inner self, my higher self. When are we going to get good music like this again? That's what I want to know. Maybe my inner self knows the answer to that question. And by the way, welcome back, Robert. Let's go to our international caller here, see what's on their mind. Over to the international Skype line. You're on the air with Robert Wagner. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Heather. Hey, Robert. Hey, Heather. Basically, my belief is that the dream state is one of the biggest untapped resources that we have, and a lot of people don't, use it, which is a shame. And I always tell people, maybe you should try and have some type of quest for your dream state. My personal quest is to try and understand the precognitive dreams, and I also try to help people in the dream state as well. But my question relies on the effect on Wi-Fi and electricity, other signals. What kind of effect does that have on sleep? And do you think people should be more aware of the effect of Wi-Fi when they're sleeping? Yeah.
Pretty good question there. I think that's Daniel in London, by the way. So,
okay.
What do you think?
I wish my friend Ed Kellogg was on the line. He has a deep interest in that sort of thing of Wi-Fi and other waves, that electronic waves going through the atmosphere. I would say that the further away that you can be from your server or router in your home, it's probably all for the better. So you don't want to have it right next to your head as you're falling asleep or something, or 2 feet away on the countertop. It'd be nice if for most people they could have it in a part of the house where they're not spending a lot of physical time. So I know has been some studies about this kind of thing, but when it comes to the dream world, I haven't heard of any studies about it. But just in general terms, I think people would do well to be aware of it and to be sure that things like routers and other electronic equipment that are giving off electronic waves aren't within 3 or 4 feet of you throughout the day, that you want them far away from you so they won't have any effect on you.
All right. Good advice. And also, he's absolutely right when it comes to the untapped potential of our dreams. I mean, I had no idea there was so much potential until this discussion tonight. I mean, I always knew that this was a powerful tool. I didn't have a grasp on just how powerful this is and how many changes we can make to our lives by using this. And it doesn't cost us anything. You don't have to go to a guru and pay $9,000 for a 3-day weekend to figure out your life. You can do this just in your dreams. And I think it's just as valid, if not personally tailored to you and your situation, right? I mean, what more could a person ask for?
Right. I remember a friend of mine, I met him at some kind of more spiritual conferences. And then he started coming to some of the dream conferences that I went to. And after a few years, he told me the interesting thing was that he'd go to the dream conferences, and he said those people always seemed to be growing. They kept becoming more their real self and more growing and adventurous and all, whereas the people in the spiritual conference that we went to were basically pretty much the same year after year. And I told him that when you start to pay attention to your dreams, they'll encourage you to expand yourself. They'll encourage you to look at issues that you've ignored. They'll encourage you to open up to new ideas. And so I think dreaming in and of itself, if we just pay attention to that, it would, for many of us, would take care of a lot of issues and help us reach our full potential.
Mm-hmm, I think so. Thank you, Daniel, for the call. Let's go to North American Skype once again, and you're on the air with Robert Wagner. Welcome to the program.
You going to punch my ticket, Heather?
Oh, you know I'm going to. That's my job. That's what I'm here for.
All right. I got about 3 things real quick for you. I had a real wild child growing up, my daughter. I guess
shocked.
you know how that is.
I'm just shocked, Bear, that you would have a wild offspring.
Oh, yes, I definitely have wild offspring.
All right.
And the second one is I got a dog that has PSTD, and I was wondering if there's any way I could tap into that kind of help him resolve his issues.
Okay. All right. And you said you had another, or you want to wait?
It depends on if he wants to answer that now or later, or if it matters.
I'm pretty sure it matters. Can we help our pets with things like that, Robert?
So you said your pet had PTSD?
Yeah, we adopted him from the pound, and apparently he's gone through something really bad. He'll cry at night and stuff like that.
It was interesting. As I went deeper into lucid dreaming, sometimes I would see a banner in the sky that said, "Trust, nothing to fear." Or sometimes I'd be in a lucid dream and I'd hear a voice behind me say, "Trust, nothing to fear." And I realized that if I was going to make it deeper into lucid dreaming, I had to adopt a greater attitude of trusting that thing would work out and all. And so by interacting with my cats in the lucid dream and all, I realized too that I think that telepathically we're connected with things around us, and there's in my workshops I give a way for people to experience that in the waking world. But if I had a dog like that, what I would do is I would mentally tell it that everything's okay. I would kind of treat it like a 2-year-old, and when it was upset, I would just insist that everything's okay, you're safe, everything's going to be fine here. And by giving it those kind of reassuring messages, it can probably work through some of its past trauma.
That's basically what I do.
Good.
Okay, and the other one is my wife has a reoccurring dream.
And is that your wife in the background telling you about her recurring dream?
Yes, it is.
All right, you can put her on the phone if you want.
Oh no, she won't come on.
Okay. Well,
she has had this dream that her sister, older sister, they were on a cruise ship, and there was like a stairway. Okay, and her older sister came out in a polka dotted bikini, and my wife asked if she could borrow it, and she said no. And so her middle sister and her go up, and then her middle sister comes down with a bikini on, and and she was all skinny and everything, and stuff. And so my wife goes, "Why can't I wear that?" And so and they don't give her an answer, and I just tell her, well, if you go and get wet, it would probably be one of those dissolving type bikinis, and you'd probably come out with nothing on.
And does she want to know how to put a stop to this recurring dream, or does she want the bikini? Do you just need to take her bikini shopping?
I think I need to take her bikini shopping.
I think so. I really do think so.
Okay, I'll let you guys go.
On a nice cruise.
Oh my gosh, I've gotten a lot more laughs out of this than I had anticipated. But I mean, any advice there? Should she ask her inner self for the answer to this question?
Yeah, you wonder about that one, but it is kind of interesting. If you would happen to have a reoccurring dream of being dominated by the older sister or something, then that would be something to look about into. The polka dot bikini, though, I'm not sure about that. But anyway, it would be nice to take a cruise, and so I think her husband ought to get her on a cruise ship and find her the perfect bikini.
Well, you didn't get a dream answer, Bear. You got a real-world answer. What you got to do, and I hope your wife is listening now, is book a cruise and buy her, I don't know, 7 different polka dot bikinis. And then that way you lay them all out, and then she can pick the one that she likes, you see. That's a plan there. At least that's the advice I'm going to give, and I am not a dream expert in any way. So I appreciate the call, Bear, as always. Let me see here now. Looks like line 2, you're on the air with Robert Wagner, and welcome to the program.
Hey, Heather, this is Sean from Texas. How are you?
Oh, doing good tonight. I've got plans for what I'm going to do with my dreams later.
Right. So I have to follow Bear with the dissolving bikini dream. Oh, man. That was awesome. So, anyhow, I have some good questions for you, though, Robert.
Okay.
So I actually called up a couple weeks ago, too, with night terror dreams. And you kind of explained away night terrors like you can kind of get rid of them so easily, though, too. But I was never able to get rid of them that easily. I mean, I actually one time had to leave my house and go and rent a hotel room and stay overnight just to try to dissuade the night terrors, you know. So,
right. So,
you know,
I do want to say that sometimes people bring up things and it sounds like sleep paralysis or something like that, which are easy to deal with. But if someone truly has night terrors, then they should probably talk to a sleep therapist or a professional, because night terrors are a serious sleep disorder and really need some attention.
Well, I mean, it only happened a couple of times, though, too. I mean, at certain periods of my life. So,
okay.
I mean,
okay.
You know, so it was, you know, it was kind of meant to be, but even so. So now my second thing that too is about lucid dreaming. Love lucid dreaming. I've done so many times in my life. You know, when I want to fly in my dreams, I usually don't fly like Superman, like hands out. Like I actually fly like, you know, my arms out and then my legs down, kind of like you're skydiving almost. But, you know, sometimes when I try to interject my lucid dreaming, I feel like the dream fights back against me. And that's usually when I get kicked out, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean?
Right. So an example of the lucid dream fighting against something that you wanted to do would be like how you fly, or where do you see the struggle?
Well, it basically, when I acknowledge the fact that I realize that I'm lucid dreaming at that point, that's usually when I try to interject within the dream. It's when it starts to almost, you know, counteract me.
I see.
You know?
I see. Right. So, you know, in my books, I always try to make a big point, and one big point that I try to make is that the sailor does not control the sea, and neither does the lucid dreamer control the dream. So in the lucid dream, we can influence things, we can direct ourselves within the larger state of dreaming. But I think what we really have to understand as lucid dreamers is that we need to have more aware relating to the various forces in the lucid dream. Some of them are unconscious. They might be beliefs that we have. They might be the larger awareness. And some of them are conscious that we just haven't figured out the rules and principles. So it's a little bit rare to hear that someone says that the lucid dream is kind of fighting against them. So I'm not exactly sure what to think about here. What I would try to think about is what if it's happening in certain areas, or if it's just the entire lucid dream, like you feel like the entire lucid dream has your number and is kind of working against you. Is that how it comes across?
Let's find out.
Working
Sean?
against me. It's not necessarily working against me. It's when the lucid dream becomes just so real. You know that, I mean, it's too beautiful to be just a dream, and you do check in for that brief moment. and you realize it's a lucid dream, you know. So
yeah. So you know, so again, lucid dreaming is a long journey. I mean, it's a long path, and it's a great path because oftentimes it'll show us things that we need to know about ourselves, or show us things that we haven't recognized. So I think really the trick here would be just when you have those moments where you feel like the lucid dream is kind of fighting against you or whatever, you might just want to kind of go along with the lucid dream and then see what happens. Because sometimes, as Stephen LaBerge found out, in lucid dreams where he surrendered, when he gave up directing or influencing the lucid dream, those were some of his most powerful lucid dreams.
Oh.
Because sometimes what the lucid dream wants to do is bring our attention to something. And that's what I tell people in my workshops is in a lucid dream, it seems best to always go to the area of the most energy. So if you become lucidly aware and there's something horrible happening, 30 feet away, you just don't ignore it and fly away. You go over there and see, what's happening. And as a lucid dreamer, you have to think, why is the dream showing me this? And so that's what I would say is it sounds like you're a good lucid dreamer, and all that's great. But when the lucid dream seems to be kind of nudging you in one direction, you might just want to go along with it and see what it's trying to show you or trying to get you to experience.
It could be about to show you something amazing that would change your life, or might even be more interesting than whatever it was you were after. Okay, all right, okay, let's see if we can squeeze in one more, and then I want to ask you about your upcoming workshops, Robert. On line 1, you're on the air with Robert Wagner. Welcome to the program.
Oh, hello, Heather. This is Alan. I was so afraid I wasn't going to get through tonight. I was getting my truck loaded and everything and didn't think I'd be able to get through.
I got just enough time for you.
Yeah, I've always had a question, and this is the perfect gentleman to answer this question for me. When I was growing up, I was always aware of lucid dreams. It was just one of those things that I just understood. When I was dreaming, I knew I was dreaming, and I would actually enjoy them. And when I was younger, I was a very light sleeper, and I could actually hear things going on in the house and just realize that and continue my dreaming and say, don't worry about it, keep going. But anyway, I started doing things like I would tell myself before I went to sleep, I want to dream about this, or I want to, and it's long about the age of 8. And that's what I would dream about. And I have a twin brother, and I began to tell him about this. And at first, he didn't believe me. And then I started saying, okay, I want to go to this place. And when I would go to sleep, I would do that. And I would begin to tell him. And so before all this Google and everything, he would go to an encyclopedia and look up some abstract place and say, okay, you dream about this tonight now. And I would, and then he'd say, next day he would ask me questions about it, and I would tell him what I saw. And he's like, well, how did you know that? And but my question is this. For example, I would go maybe say the Great Wall of China, and I would see things, and I would tell him about it. I was always never sure whether I was having a lucid dream or it was astral projection. I don't know whether I was actually going there or it was a lucid dream, because these were so real and it had such detail. And of course, I never knew until tonight. And I'm glad I heard you say this, that you were able to ask questions during your lucid dream. I always thought you had to ask it before, so I'm looking forward to trying that. But how do you know the difference between what is a lucid dream and what is actually maybe astral projection?
There are some lucid dreams where you are experiences in the middle of the night where you just suddenly find yourself flying, you're consciously aware, you're going vast distances, and then you find yourself at the Great Wall of China or something like that. And so sometimes it's a little bit hard to know whether you're having a lucid dream or a astral travel. But I honestly don't know in this particular case. there might be the chance that on just some collective unconscious level that you have accessible to you information about the Great Wall of China and that kind of thing. But that's a good one. I just honestly can't tell you for sure, Alan. But it sounds like you have a great capacity for lucid dreaming, so I hope you stay with it.
Well, I guess a big test would be try to look back at your body. And if you're looking at your body from the outside, that might be a clue that you're actually experiencing astral travel. If you can't look back at your body, then you're in your body and you're dreaming. Does that make any sense, Robert?
Yeah, that's one of those. And also sometimes, a lot of times, astral travel, it'll begin from your home environment. Most lucid dreams occur in a dream environment that don't have anything to do with your home.
All right. Well,
out of body or astral travel.
Okay.
You're leaving from your bedroom or something like that, or your neighborhood.
Okay. Well, that would be probably the best way then to tell the difference. And you have conferences coming up here. Actually, pretty soon. You've got April 29th and April 30th. You're going to be in Greenville, South Carolina. And what do you do at these workshops?
Right. Well, this in Greenville, South Carolina, here on April 29th and 30th, that's going to be a 2-day conference that's sponsored by the International Association for the Study of Dreams. So I'm going to be there giving talks on lucid dreaming. There'll be some other people speaking on lucid dreaming, and other people who'll be talking about dream interpretation and various things like that. Mm-hmm. So there'll be a number of speakers. And then here in, let me think now, in June, from June 16th to the 21st, I'll be in Anaheim, California. And again, that'll be with the International Association for the Study of Dreams. They'll have like 100 different presenters. It's a wonderful organization, all sorts of scientists speaking about dreams and lucid dreams, people like myself who are experienced in those areas, talking about dreams and lucid dreams. So that's fun. And then I'll also be in London, or actually in Chelmsford, United Kingdom, for the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival on June 3rd and 4th.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Some talks and all. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And people can always keep up with me by checking out my website, lucidadvice.com.
Uh-huh.
They can go to our magazine, which is at dreaminglucid.com. But that's the way to keep in touch with me. And for all of those who want to go deeper into lucid dreaming, I really encourage you to check out my book, Lucid Dreaming, Gateway to the Inner Self, or my other book, Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple. They can really kind of turbocharge your lucid dream life.
Probably some of the best books on the subject out there right now. And if people want to get in touch with you, do they do that through social media? Can they contact you through lucidadvice.com or anything like that?
Right. There I have a place where people can post questions. Also, people can find me on Facebook and that sort of thing.
All
right.
But
I'm always happy to help people with their lucid dreaming, and I just love answering questions because I just know how important it is to work through some of these issues so you can reach your full potential.
Well, you know what? You're probably wore out by now because we really gave you the third degree tonight. I mean, there was a lot of calls and a lot of questions, so it's been a pure pleasure, and I look forward to the time that we get a chance to do this again. Thank you for spending so much time with me on the program tonight, Robert.
Oh, thanks, Heather, and lucid wishes to everyone out there.
Again, I hope we can do this again sometime. Robert Wagner, everybody, in my mind, probably one of the best people to talk to when it comes to lucid dreaming, and I highly recommend his books also. And everybody out there, have vivid, lucid dreams tonight. I'll catch you here tomorrow, and we'll see what kind of trouble we can get into. For tonight, everybody out there, have a good night.